Chapter 1. Your husband and I are in room 1108 of Shangri-La, doing what we like to do. Baya, why don't you get a divorce? Are you that cheap? You can't keep his body, and you can't keep his heart. Baya stood at the door of room 1108, looking at the text message on her phone indifferently. Her long eyelashes covered the darkness in her eyes, and there was no other expression on her face. The sound of the door opening was heard. Su Jiran came out with his beautiful and enchanting assistant in his arms. When he saw Baya, he paused for a moment and smirked. Are you here to catch us in the act again? Why don't you go in? It's so hot outside, aren't you tired of standing? Baya looked at him indifferently. I'm afraid that I'll disturb your fun and make you see that I'm impotent. That's my fault. However, have you recovered from your illness? When Su Jiran heard her curse, there was a flash of anger in his eyes. Baya, you were the one who was unclean back then. Why do you have to be so sarcastic? Baya laughed. She laughed so hard that tears were about to fall. 3 years ago, his ex-girlfriend had kidnapped her. She was raped by a masked stranger while she was escaping. She watched as his car stopped not far away from her. He had sex with the woman in the car. And that woman was the woman who had kidnapped her. She watched as the car shook, and her heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. She didn't know how she had survived that day, but when she thought of it, her heart still ached. If it makes you uncomfortable, then I'm sorry. I'm used to being sarcastic. Baya raised her chin lazily. Su Jiran's eyes turned cold. What are you doing here? Don't tell me you're here to make me unhappy. I'm afraid you're right. Your premonition has always been very accurate. Baya smiled indifferently. Get lost, Su Jiran said bluntly. Baya took out a document from her bag and handed it to Su Jiran. Su Jiran didn't take it. He asked cautiously, what is this? Baya glanced at Su Jiran's assistant. What's wrong with me? The assistant held on to Su Jiran's arm. She heard that although Baya was Mrs. Su, she was not favored at all. Today, Su Jiran hated him to the core. Therefore, she was fearless. Baya waved the documents in her hand. You're Suching's infamous dirty secretary. 80% of the rich businessmen in Suching have slept with you. One of them was diagnosed with AIDS last month. The assistant was so shocked that his face turned pale. Baya glanced at Su Jiran. You guys have taken precautions, right? If not, I know a doctor. Do you want me to introduce him to you? Su Jiran took the file from Baya's hand, narrowed his eyes, and threw the file at Baya's face. You always make people unhappy. Baya stood straight. It hurt more than she had imagined when the paper hit her face. She sneered. You know it. I'm counting on you to spend the rest of your life unhappy. Then I'll have to do something to make you unhappy to make me happy. You're not going back today. Don't wait for me. Su Jiran said angrily. He turned around and strode towards the elevator. Baya stood there indifferently, expressionless. She knew what he meant when he said she didn't need to wait for him. Tonight, he would spend the night at another woman's place and smell like another woman. After she had lost him, he had never touched her. In his eyes, she was nothing more than a dirty secretary. Her clear and cold eyes were gradually filled with tears. It didn't mean that she didn't feel pain just because she didn't talk or cry. Su Jiran's assistant slapped her face. Baya was caught off guard. She took a few steps back and leaned against the wall. You're so despicable. You ruined me. Do you think you can get his heart? The assistant clenched her fists and said angrily. I don't want that scumbag's heart at all. Baya slapped the assistant's face. I'm not someone you can bully. Then why don't you divorce him? The assistant shouted. You don't have the right to know. This information will be exposed on the internet tomorrow. You're on your own, Baya said coldly and walked out of the hotel. It was late at night. She gathered her clothes and walked on the deserted road. The moonlight stretched out her figure. It was a little lonely and a little lonely. Returning home would only make her heart more uncomfortable. She went to the hospital's on-call room to sleep. When she reached the office, she turned on the lights. A soldier in a green military uniform ran over with a serious expression and asked anxiously, "Are you the gynecologist on duty?" Baya was infected by his nervousness. "What's wrong? What's the matter?" "There's a pregnant woman being held hostage nearby. Her water has broken and the situation is very critical. She needs emergency treatment immediately. Please come with me," the soldier said anxiously. The water broke and it was very dangerous for the pregnant woman and the fetus. Baya didn't have time to think about it. "I'll pack the first aid kit and go with you. Give me 5 minutes." After a while, she followed the soldier to the garden district near the hospital. On the corridor, there were more than 10 soldiers with serious expressions. They were well trained and motionless, waiting for instructions from their superiors. Baya was led to room 802, which was opposite room 801. At first glance, she saw the man who was giving orders. He had a resolute face and sharp eyes. His deep facial features were like a perfect work of art in the hands of a sculptor. He was valiant and stunning. What made her curious was that among those who were listening carefully, there was a colonel with 2 bars and 3 stars on his shoulder. Then, wasn't his identity a general? The man's sharp eyes glanced over, full of murderous intent. Baya was stunned. She was intimidated and lowered her head. He walked straight towards her. His tall figure formed a dark shadow that shrouded her, creating an oppressive aura. She thought of the strange man that night. He also had such a strong physique. Therefore, her struggle was of no use. "Raise your head," Gu Lingqing ordered. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he stared at her delicate face. His lips were tightly pursed and he was not angry. Under his pressure, Baya raised her head and looked at him. His face was cold and his eyes were sharp, which made people shudder. It was the first time she saw such a man who made people respect him even if he didn't speak. "I'm a doctor, not a criminal," Baya said. A sharp light flashed in Gu Lingqing's eyes and he ordered his subordinates, "Let her go and get another one to come in." Baya was confused. "Why can't I? There are 3 drug lords inside. They kill without batting an eye. Do you dare?" Gu Lingqing asked sternly. "Why not?" Baya asked. Gu Lingqing's eyes narrowed. He held her chin and moved closer. "Think carefully before you answer me. You will most likely die in there. It's not a game or a drill." His breath fell on her lips, it was very soul-stirring. Baya was stubborn. The more others looked down on her, the more she had to do it. "If I'm afraid of death, I wouldn't have come here," she replied directly, staring straight at Gu Lingqing, fearless in the face of danger. Gu Lingqing frowned and looked at her deeply. Chapter 2. I'll send her in. 3 seconds later, Gu Lingqing changed his words. He loosened his hand and took a step back. "No," everyone said at the same time. Lieutenant Colonel Shang reminded him worriedly, "Chief, it's too dangerous for you to go in. If the deputy commander knows about it, it'll be hard for us to explain. Don't talk nonsense. It's not dangerous for anyone to go in. Stay here and wait for orders," Gu Lingqing ordered decisively. "But Chief," Lieutenant Colonel Shang still wanted to say something. Gu Lingqing glanced at him coldly. Lieutenant Colonel Shang shut up and nodded helplessly. "Yes, Gu Lingqing grabbed Bai Ye's arm forcefully and pulled her to the door of room 801. Bai Ye went to knock on the door. He held her hand. As if there was an electric current flowing through the back of her hand. Bai Ye was shocked and withdrew her hand. She was not used to being held by a man. Gu Lingqing's stern eyes became colder, looking down at her rejection. He turned on the phone recording and said expressionlessly, "Before you go in, say your last words. If you die, we'll send them to your family. Send them to my husband." Bai Ye said indifferently and took the phone from Gu Lingqing's hand. "Su Jiran, if there's a next life, I hope we won't meet again. Donate all my body, dissect it or transplant it. We won't see each other again." Bai Ye said directly and returned the phone to Gu Lingqing. He looked at her deeply and a strange light flashed in his eyes. "Any other last words?" Bai Ye's eyes softened a little. "Give the rest of my money to my mother. If it's possible, I hope you can take care of her." "Yes." Gu Lingqing promised. Bai Ye was relieved and lowered her head to the door. "You can go in now. The pregnant woman who is being held hostage is the girlfriend of a high-ranking official. You must ensure the safety of her and the child. In addition, before anything happens to me, nothing will happen to you." "I promise," Gu Lingqing said in a deep voice. Bai Ye paused. Her cold gaze met his eyes, which were as vast as the universe. It was so vast, so vast. In his heart, there was a sour feeling. An extremely handsome guy said to her, "Nothing will happen to you until something happens to me." Such a promise, even to a stranger, made people feel warm. Especially now, when her heart was desolate and cold. "I'm not afraid." Bai Ye smiled. "But thank you anyway." "You're welcome," Gu Lingqing said. He pulled Bai Ye behind him and knocked on the door. The door opened a crack. "Let that woman come in alone," the person inside said fiercely. "She needs an assistant for the surgery." "Just the two of us will come in," Gu Lingqing negotiated. "No, who knows what you're up to? Then let the pregnant woman die. Don't you have any hostages?" Gu Lingqing was cold. It was majestic, sonorous, and powerful. It could instantly make people tremble. The person hesitated for 3 seconds. "You have guts. Come in." Gu Lingqing pushed the door open and walked in. A gun was pointed at Gu Lingqing's head. Bai Ye looked at him worriedly. He was still expressionless. The crew cut searched Gu Lingqing's body. He didn't find any weapons. "Don't play any tricks." He put away the gun. "It hurts. Help me. Help me." The pregnant woman's cry for help came from the main room. Bai Ye rushed to the main room. The curtains were drawn. The lights in the room weren't turned on. It was very dark. 2 men held guns in their hands and aimed them at her. Bai Ye walked to the pregnant woman. The pregnant woman's face was pale. She held her stomach. The bed was already wet. "Help me, help me. I don't want to die." "Show me the latest ultrasound," Bai Ye said urgently. In the drawer." The pregnant woman was in so much pain that her head was covered in sweat. Bai Ye opened the drawer. There was a photo frame on the ultrasound. In the photo frame was a photo of the pregnant woman and Su Jiran. Bai Ye was slightly stunned. It turned out that the senior official was referring to Su Jiran. And the pregnant woman was another woman Su Jiran had outside. "Doctor, help me. I'm in so much pain." The pregnant woman held Bai Ye's hand. Bai Ye came to his senses. He took out the ultrasound report and glanced at it. His expression changed. "Your fetus is in an abnormal position. The umbilical cord is around your neck. You can't have a natural birth. You have to have a cesarean section." Also, your situation is urgent. We can't use local anesthesia. We can only use general anesthesia, Baya said urgently and opened the first aid kit. The criminal snatched the first aid kit. After confirming that there were no weapons, he returned it to Baya. The pregnant woman shook her head. Her eyes were red as she pleaded, "Can we not perform a C-section? He likes women without scars. He likes women without scars." As expected, it's Su-jiran style. "The child will suffocate if we do that," Baya said coldly. A fierce look flashed through the pregnant woman's eyes. She gritted her teeth. "Then let it suffocate." Baya's eyes narrowed. There was a flash of disgust in her eyes. "That's the child you carried for 9 months. It's already alive. Without his love, what's the use of having this child? It will only drag me down." "I don't want scars," the pregnant woman shouted with certainty. Her stomach hurt even more because of her agitation. Baya gritted her teeth. She took out the anesthetic from the first aid kit, opened it quickly, and injected it into the syringe. "I'm sorry. As a doctor, I can't promise you that. In my eyes, he's already alive," Baya said coldly. She focused on emptying the air in the syringe, preparing to inject it. Gu Lingqing held her wrist. A look of concern flashed through his deep eyes. He knew the importance of satisfying the wishes of the person involved. She would get into a lifelong lawsuit for her stubbornness. Listen to her. She's the person involved, Gu Lingqing reminded. Baya shook his hand off, but she couldn't shake it off. She was furious. She looked into his eyes firmly. "I'm a gynecologist. Delivering a child is my responsibility. If there's a problem later, I'll take responsibility. I'm not afraid of death." "I didn't expect you to be so afraid of taking responsibility." Gu Lingqing was slightly stunned. He was not afraid of taking responsibility. It was just that for a moment, he was worried that something would happen to her. He let go of his hand and said coldly, "Do the surgery. Just say that it's my order. I'll talk to your director." Baya bent down and put on the rubber gloves. She said to the criminals in a serious tone, "Please leave. I need to operate on her." "No, the hostage must be in our hands. You'll operate on her right under our noses. Can she run away in such a situation?" Baya was worried that the pregnant woman's body would be seen. The criminals raised the gun and aimed it at Baya. "I'll shoot you if you talk too much." Gu Lingqing stood in front of Baya. "You won't be able to escape even if you shoot her." The criminals were hesitating. "Doctor, I can't take it anymore. The child is coming out." "Ah!" The pregnant woman screamed. A sharp light flashed through Gu Lingqing's eyes. It was useless to be in a stalemate. He opened the cupboard and took out a piece of green bed sheet. He spread it out. He protected Baya and the pregnant woman behind the sheet. Chapter 3. Baya didn't waste any time. She used a pair of medical scissors to untie the pregnant woman's pants. The baby's feet were already out. There was no time to cut her belly open. The baby would definitely suffocate if it took too long. Bear with it. Baya injected the anesthetic and cut her. The anesthetic didn't numb her body yet. The pregnant woman felt the pain and yelled, "You be *tch, I'm going to sue you. You won't even be a doctor. Sue me when the baby is safely born." "I'll wait for you," Baya said indifferently. She finally delivered the baby successfully and cut the umbilical cord neatly. Wah! Wah! The child's loud cries rang out. Baya smiled and looked at the pregnant woman. The pregnant woman was unconscious. Baya's eyes narrowed. She put down the baby and checked on the pregnant woman. "Officer," she called out worriedly. Gu Lingqing looked at Bai Ye. Her forehead and the tip of her nose were covered in beads of sweat. He had a strange feeling in his heart. "What's wrong?" Gu Lingqing asked in a deep voice. "The pregnant woman's blood pressure is very low. She needs to be injected immediately and hospitalized for observation," Bai Ye reported. Gu Lingqing looked at the criminals and said without hesitation, "Let them go. I'll be your hostage." The three of them looked at each other. Crew Cut looked at the time on his hand. "The plane will arrive in 40 minutes. If we let them go and let you stay, wouldn't we have another bomb?" "I'll stay," Bai Ye said. Gu Lingqing looked at Bai Ye in surprise. There was a hint of confusion in his deep eyes. Bai Ye smiled and said to Gu Lingqing in a gentle tone, "Send them to the hospital. Otherwise, the baby and the pregnant woman will die." "None of you can leave," Crew Cut yelled. Bai Ye looked at Crew Cut. "Leave a pregnant woman in a coma, a baby waiting to be fed, and a well-trained special forces soldier. It'll be a burden for you, right?" "Let them go," the older man said. Flat Top nodded and stood aside. Gu Lingqing glanced at Bai Ye and said nothing. He bent down and carried the pregnant woman on his back. He carried the baby with one hand and quickly left. A group of people were waiting outside. They all breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the mother and baby come out safely. "Send them to the hospital." Gu Lingqing handed the pregnant woman and the child to the soldiers. His sharp eyes swept to room 801 and ordered, "Lieutenant Colonel Shang, prepare the snipers." "Chief, they've been rescued. Our mission is complete. We can leave this to the ordinary anti-drug team. You can take a rest first." Lieutenant Colonel Shang said respectfully. "The hostage is still inside. How can he rest?" Gu Lingqing glanced at Lieutenant Colonel Shang coldly. Lieutenant Colonel Shang couldn't understand why the chief was angry. Just like how he couldn't understand why the bureau chief had to personally handle this kind of mission. "Then I'll arrange a sniper right away." Lieutenant Colonel Shang nodded. "If you have to choose between the safety of the hostages and letting the tiger go back to the mountain, you can let the tiger go back to the mountain." Gu Lingqing added. Lieutenant Colonel Shang was even more surprised. The chief had always been swift and decisive. He would defeat all hostile forces and would never be lenient. Why was it so strange this time? Time ticked by. Gu Lingqing stood by the window and looked outside. His eyes were unfathomably dark. 3 years ago, he went to perform a special mission. There was a little accident during the mission. He was left in the wilderness and injected with a very strong and unusual drug. When he lost his mind and was about to explode and die, she appeared just like that. He didn't hold back and wanted to kill her. When he woke up, he was already in the military hospital. He used his connections and used 2 days to find her. She was wearing a white wedding dress. She was as holy as an angel. Standing on the high tower of the church, she exchanged rings with Su Jiran without hesitation and became his bride. He thought that the pregnant woman who was held hostage in the room was her, so he came. He didn't expect that the pregnant woman was her husband's mistress. And she chose to use herself to protect the safety of her husband's illegitimate child and lover. He didn't understand what she was thinking. Bang! A sound came from room 801. Gu Lingqing was startled. He turned around and asked Lieutenant Colonel Shang coldly, "What happened in room 801? "It's not clear at the moment," Lieutenant Colonel Shang said carefully. Gu Lingqing glanced at the kitchen of room 802. It was opposite to the kitchen of room 801. There were 2 meters between them. He walked to the kitchen and asked solemnly, "What's the situation of the helicopter? How long will it take?" Lieutenant Colonel Shang followed behind Gu Lingqing and reported. It will arrive in 30 minutes. Gu Lingqing didn't say anything. He put the ladder between the two kitchens and jumped up. Chief, it's too dangerous for you to go in alone, Lieutenant Colonel Shang said worriedly. Gu Lingqing glared at him sharply. You talk a lot of nonsense. Lieutenant Colonel Shang didn't dare to say anything else. He hurriedly ordered the soldiers, 008-101, follow him immediately. You must protect the chief. Yes. The soldiers received the order and went up the ladder. Lieutenant Colonel Shang's worried eyes were about to drip tears. The chief had a bright future, and it was possible for him to become the president in the future. If something happened, the vice commander would break his neck. Gu Lingqing jumped down the ladder nimbly, as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he leaned against the wall. His cold eyes swept across the living room. The flat top was in the living room, and the other two were still in the bedroom. He squatted down, walked lightly, stared at the flat top with sharp eyes, took out the waste knife, and rushed over. The flat top saw Gu Lingqing. Before he could say anything, he was already lying on the ground. 008 and 101 immediately went to deal with the mess. Gu Lingqing made some specific sign language to 008 and 101. 008 and 101 nodded. They took down the curtains silently. The sight in the living room was bright. The sniper was on standby. Gu Lingqing pressed his back against the wall, moved to the outside of the bedroom, and looked inside. Bai Yi sat on the head of the bed, looking at the air and thinking. Faint, still shadow sinking jade, but there was a kind of inexplicable sadness shrouding it. This kind of sadness came from the inside, which made people feel pity for him. Boss, why is there still no movement outside? The blonde gangster took a few deep breaths of the cigarette and scratched his hair angrily. The older gangster stared at Bai Yi's beautiful face with a sinister gaze. His eyes drifted to Bai Yi's chest, and there was more darkness. There's still half an hour before the plane arrives. Do you want to enjoy it? The blonde man understood, looked at Bai Yi, and said wretchedly, this woman's figure and appearance are not for show, and she wants to be a dissolute ghost before she dies. He threw away the cigarette butt and rushed towards Bai Yi. Gu Lingqing's black eyes shrank a little, and he was about to rush in. Bai Yi calmly picked up the needle, pointed it at his neck, and said coldly, come again, and I'll let you have no hostages. I don't think you dare. The blonde man insisted on going his own way. Bai Yi used force, and the needle went into his skin. Chapter 4. The criminal was also frightened by her. He froze on the spot and went into a trance for a moment. Bai Yi had a sarcastic smile on her face. Her eyes were desolate. Come on, I'm going to die anyway. All of you will die with me. It was an obvious indifference to death. It was cold, like the cold of December. Gu Lingqing's gaze deepened as he stared at her. Boss, I want to kill her. The blonde man clenched his fists and said. The older criminal stood up. Bai Yi also stood up and walked toward the yellow-haired gangster. The atmosphere was tense. It was about to explode. The older criminal was shocked by her courage. He pointed his gun at her. Don't come any closer. Bai Yi sneered. It was very sarcastic. She saw Gu Lingqing outside the door from the corner of her eyes and paused for a moment. Can I go to the washroom? Bai Yi said cleverly. Here, the older man said cautiously. Actually, you can't run away. There are dozens of snipers outside the window aiming at you. Bai Yi nodded and looked out the window. The older criminal was shocked. He immediately walked to the window, lifted a corner and looked out. Bai Yi took the opportunity to run towards the door. The older criminal realized that he had been tricked. He raised his gun and fired at Bai Yi's leg. Gu Lingqing was one step faster and grabbed her arm. She bumped into his arms. He pulled her behind him. The criminal saw Gu Lingqing coming in again. He realized the danger and fired at Gu Lingqing. He held her head and fell to the ground like a well-trained soldier. It was a dangerous move. But her head was in his hands. It didn't hurt at all. His legs were pressed against her body, and his warm breath fell on her face. Baiya looked into his eyes. It was as vast as the universe. She looked at him like that. It was as if she could forget all the pain and difficulties, as well as the pain in the depths of her heart. "Why are you here again?" Baiya asked. She suddenly felt that her question was redundant. They were soldiers. It was their duty to protect the hostages. "Lie here, stay close to the sofa and don't move. I'll do everything I can to ensure your safety," Gu Lingqing promised. Baiya looked at him like a cheetah in battle. In an instant, he rushed to the back of the pillar. The desperate gangster picked up his gun and started shooting. Baiya could only hear the sound of gunshots whistling past his ears. The stone and the outer skin of the pillar fell away. Gu Lingqing had no chance to fight back at all. The older gangster approached the pillar with a strafe gun. Baiya glanced at him. If this continued, they would all die. She took off her shoes and threw them from behind the sofa. The blonde criminal quickly fired at the sofa. Pang! A crisp sound rang out. Blondie was shot. He staggered and fell to the ground. The older criminal was alarmed and jumped toward the sofa. Gu Lingqing took the risk and pulled Baiya behind the TV cabinet. In the narrow space, the two of them were squeezed together. Gu Lingqing fired outside to prevent the gangster from approaching. Baiya looked up at Gu Lingqing. She didn't expect that it would be this stranger who would do everything to protect her. And her husband, who was supposed to protect her, was in another gentle village at this moment. Gu Lingqing felt her gaze and lowered his head to look at her. Their lips accidentally touched, and there seemed to be an electric current flashing through. His back stiffened, and he turned his face away to keep a distance from her. Baiya also leaned against the wall. Even Su Jiran had never been so close to her. Before she died, she had kissed a handsome leader. It was not a loss. The gangster's eyes were bloodshot and he fired at the TV. The TV was broken. They were exposed to the enemy's vision. Gu Lingqing didn't hesitate for a moment. He turned sideways and stood in front of Baiya. He pressed her head against his chest and used her as a meat shield to protect her safety. He completely protected her in his arms. Bang! 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 She heard the strong beating of his heart, like a big drum. The unique musk smell of his body rushed into her nose. It smelled good and warm. She had never had this kind of warmth and peace of mind since she was sensible. In the depths of her memory, the hidden pain attacked her strongly, intertwined with Su Jiran's betrayal and deception. If her life ended here, at least at this moment, she had the long-lost warm feeling. It was also good. Baiya closed her eyes, and a tear flowed out from the corner of her eye. Hiding in the arms of this strange man, she cried quietly for the only time. At the critical moment. Bang bang. 2 gunshots. 008 and number 101, who were hiding in the dark, successfully annihilated the enemy under the guidance of Gu Lingqing. After they rushed out to check, they returned to Gu Lingqing's side and saluted. Reporting to the leader, the gangster has been executed on the spot. Gu Lingqing let go of Baiya. She opened her eyes and raised the corner of her mouth. I didn't expect to be alive like this. Gu Lingqing didn't understand her tone. It seemed that she was a little disappointed. He felt a trace of coldness in his chest. Looking down, he saw a piece of dampness, and looked at Baiya in surprise. Baiya got up and looked at him with a pair of beautiful big eyes. In the clear eyes, there was a calmness that kept people thousands of miles away. It was like a pool of calm water, cold, but also calm. Gu Lingqing got up and asked worriedly, "Are you all right?" Bai Ye raised the corner of her mouth. "The leader protected me very well. I'm fine. The task is completed. I'll go back first." She turned around. "Leave your phone and name. When I go back, I will apply and give you the award." Gu Lingqing looked serious, as if he was going through an ordinary procedure. However, in fact, he didn't need to deal with these things as a leader. There's no need. It's necessary for the military and the people to cooperate. Bai Ye looked at the time hanging on the wall. It was past 2:00. I have to go to work tomorrow. I'm leaving. She didn't wait for Gu Lingqing's reply. She walked into the master bedroom and picked up her emergency box. Gu Lingqing stood at the door, his tall and straight posture solemnly, looking at her with a profound gaze. She walked past him without saying anything, opened the door and walked out. The room was very quiet, as if she had never appeared before. Gu Lingqing looked down at the dampness in his chest again. There was an inexplicable feeling in his heart. 008 Follow her. Make sure she gets home safely before going back to the camp. He ordered seriously. Yes. 008 101 quickly left. Lieutenant Colonel Shang breathed a sigh of relief. He walked in and stood respectfully in front of Gu Lingqing. Reporting to the leader. Under the wise leadership of the leader, this task has been successfully completed. 28 team members are already on standby outside. Please give your instructions. Go back. Gu Lingqing said simply and walked out of the door. Downstairs, a military Land Rover was ready to go. Gu Lingqing leaned his body slightly and got into the back seat. The car passed by Bai Ye. Gu Lingqing looked out of the window subconsciously. Bai Ye carried the emergency box and walked on the way back to the hospital. He was thin and weak, but he had the carefree manner of an ancient Taoist. Lieutenant Colonel Shang. Gu Lingqing shouted. Yes. Lieutenant Colonel Shang immediately turned his head and waited for Gu Lingqing's instructions. Chapter 5. In a villa located halfway up the mountain in Ning District. The room was dimly lit, and the room was filled with apple aromatherapy. On the pink bed, the sheets were wrinkled. Su Jiran was sitting with his eyes half closed. His eyelashes, which were as thick as fans, covered his eyes, which were like black lotuses. She could not see the killing intent that flashed in his eyes from time to time. His rosy lips were slightly parted in a sexy manner. He was like an angel in the hands of a sculptor. He had an exquisite appearance, a charming personality, and a charming smile that was always on his face. I want it, the girl begged. He lowered his head and smiled wickedly. He pinched her lovely chin. Do you want it? Yes. I'm a little tired today. Let's do it another day. Su Jiran said cruelly. He stood up and walked into the bathroom. Tonight, he felt that it was meaningless. Su Jiran left this golden nest early in the morning. After leaving the villa, he picked up his phone and called Bai Ye. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings, Bai Ye did not pick up the call. He smiled wickedly and murmured, You've learned to throw a tantrum. Very good. He then dialed the number of her apartment in the city center. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. His patience was gradually wearing thin. Hello. The maid of the house, Bai Qi, said sleepily. Where's madam? Su Jiran asked coldly. Yes, sir. Madam is not back yet, Bai Qi replied. She's not on duty today, is she? Su Jiran's eyes became even colder. No. As soon as Bai Qi finished speaking, Su Jiran hung up the phone. Bai Ye has learned to stay out at night. He sped up and drove to the hospital. Bai Ye returned to the hospital. She opened the drawer and took out her phone. There was a call from Su Jiran at 2:31. She put on a sad smile and put down the phone without returning the call. She rummaged through the drawer and took out the wound patches and iodine. She walked to the mirror and tilted her neck. The spot where the needle mark was had already become a scar. If one did not look closely, they would not be able to see it. For safety's sake, she put the wound patch on herself. He sat back in his chair. She dipped a cotton swab in iodine, wiped the fingernail scars on her hands, and stuck 3 wound patches on them. After she was done, she lay down on the bed in her office. The door was pushed open. Bai Ye sat up defensively. When Su Jiran saw her, a charming smile appeared on his tense face. He put his hands in his pockets and walked over to her lazily. You don't have to be on duty today. Why don't you go home and sleep? Bai Ye looked at the hickey on his neck. He had just finished his business. Why are you here? She skipped over his question, put on her shoes, and got up. Just passing by. Su Jiran said leisurely, seeing the wound on her neck. A sarcastic smile appeared on his handsome face. Bai Ye, when did you learn to injure yourself? She stared fixedly at his nonchalant expression. There was not the slightest hint of guilt or shame on his face. It was as if he wasn't the one who cheated on her, and he wasn't the one who made the woman give birth to a child. A burst of anger came from her heart, and her eyes became sharp. Yes, the trick of injuring yourself. But compared with your cheating, this kind of pain. Hiss. Before she finished speaking, Su Jiran reached out and tore off the wound patch on her neck. Bai Ye felt that the skin on her neck was pulled and hurt. The pain was so cold that it reached her brain and interrupted what she was going to say. She stood there in a daze, and her eyes were in a trance. Su Jiran looked at her smooth neck, and his eyes flashed with disgust. There is no wound on the neck at all, Bai Ye. You are too scheming. No matter how well a clown acts, he is still a clown after all. Su Jiran said sarcastically. She felt cold in her heart, and there was no need to talk to him. You can get out of here. Bai Ye said impolitely. A sharp light flashed through Su Jiran's eyes. He held her chin and pushed her to sit on the bed. His eyes stared at her cold face and said sarcastically, Do you know why I disdain to touch you? She pursed her mouth and didn't speak. She looked at him with wide eyes without blinking. The strings in her heart were touched, and it hurt. That's it now. She wanted to print his cruelty and bloodthirst in her mind, so that her heart would slowly cool down until it no longer hurt. Seeing that she didn't speak, Su Jiran became angrier and didn't hide his disgust for her. Because you are so arrogant and annoying, and your affectation makes me lose my appetite. Her eyelashes flickered, and her watery eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She stared at him quietly, without crying or refuting. Her chest was bleeding drop by drop. Do you know why I should marry you knowing that you hate me? Bai Ye asked. Su Jiran paused for a moment and furrowed his brows as he looked into her eyes. Bai Ye raised her smile, like a charming hibiscus. When she smiled, she could turn all living things upside down, and she could topple a country and a city. Su Jiran was a little obsessed with her smile. Because I want to see you suffer. You and your lover kidnapped me together. I have no evidence, so I can only destroy you with me. Bai Ye said resolutely. Su Jiran threw her face away. Wait for my lawyer's letter. I want to divorce you. If you want to destroy with me, don't dream. Su Jiran said irrationally. He turned around, pulled out a tissue from her table, and wiped it hard. It seemed that he had touched something dirty. He crumpled the paper into a ball and threw it into the trash can. He turned around, walked quickly to the door, and closed the door. There was a bang. Baya looked at the closed door and sat on the bed. Her eyes were a little moist. She lay back on the bed and closed her eyes, but the pain in her chest spread. Once upon a time, she had loved him wholeheartedly. But, her love, to him, what is? He was the one who proposed the marriage, the one who betrayed her, and the one who divorced her. She was like a real clown, playing the role of being ridiculed and despised by others. Her chest tightened, and she couldn't even breathe. She curled up even tighter, hugging her body tightly, as if she could absorb a little heat from her body, so that she wouldn't die of cold. She didn't fall asleep until the sky turned white. At the base, Gu Lingqing looked through the information handed over by Lieutenant Colonel Shang. He frowned, and a trace of guilt flashed through his dark eyes. He didn't know that she had such a miserable life after getting married. She and her husband were separated, and the relationship between her in-laws was not good. Her mother was in a mental hospital. Her husband had had 16 lovers. Basically, he changed women every 2.5 months. Chapter 6. Based on her achievements yesterday, she deserves it. Lieutenant Colonel Shang added. Also, Gu Lingqing's eyes darkened. Recruit 2 doctors from the Special Forces this year to ensure that no ordinary boss surname will be used in an emergency. Fighting against criminals is our duty as soldiers. Yes. Lieutenant Colonel Shang obeyed respectfully. What's the schedule for today? Gu Lingqing put on his military uniform neatly. That set of clothes on his body made him look righteous and radiant. Lieutenant Colonel Shang looked up and reported, "Sir, there is a meeting at 9 o'clock today. In the afternoon, we will go to watch the internal military parade. In the evening, Chief Su from the Air Force Department asked you to meet at the General's Order Club. He asked you to bring your girlfriend. Tell him to go to hell." Gu Lingqing said coldly. Lieutenant Colonel Shang lowered his head. He didn't have the guts to do that. However, the chief didn't have a girlfriend. What should he do? Baya finished the last operation and pushed open the door of her office tiredly. Her friend Lu Shuang sat on her chair with his legs crossed and looked at her with a smile. Guess what news I brought today? Good news or bad news? Baya asked. She washed her hands and walked towards Lu Shuang. Lu Shuang stood up and gave his seat to Baya. He sat on the table and said nosily, "Good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" Baya took out the patient's file and smiled. "Let the bad news rot in your stomach." Lu Shuang pursed his lips. "Look at you. Did you cooperate with the soldiers to help the pregnant woman give birth yesterday?" "Yes. I was in the office." Baya explained and lowered her head to write the report. "That pregnant woman asked me to operate on her and said that she would sue you. I heard that she is the concubine of a senior official. Why did you save such a woman?" Lu Shuang said. Baya didn't even raise her head. She said calmly, "In my eyes, she is a pregnant woman who is going to give birth. Is the child okay? Mother and child are safe. However, there's also good news. You've made a great contribution this time, and the higher-ups want to promote you to deputy director. Sister, treat us." Lu Shuang snatched the pen from Baya's hand and smiled evilly. Baya looked at Lu Shuang. "Of course, no problem. You can only get off work after I finish writing this report." Lu Shuang threw the pen to Baya. "Hurry up and write without stopping." After work they come out of the office. Su Jian walked over with the roses. Lu Shuang squeezed Baya with his shoulder and teased, "It seems like you have a date tonight." A gentleman should help others achieve their goals. Treat me another day. Baya looked at Sujiran. He also saw Baya. The corners of his lips curled up, but there was a sharp glint in his eyes. He entered VIP room 1308 in front of Baya. Lu Shuang's eyes widened. He pointed at Sujiran's back and asked in surprise, "Why is he going to that woman's room?" Could it be that the senior official was referring to Sujiran? Baya lowered her eyes, and her long eyelashes covered her face. "Let's go. Go. Go." Lu Shuang was furious. He pulled Baya's arm. "When he was courting you, there were flowers all over the office every day. Now that he has you, you're just a broken flower in the trash can. It's not that easy. He kept a mistress and gave birth to an illegitimate child. Baya, if you continue to be so nice, you'll lose your position sooner or later," Lu Shuang said. Baya twitched the corner of her mouth. She looked at Lu Shuang coldly. "Do you think I still care about Mrs. Su's position? That's not what you said. Why is he using your husband's identity to flirt around outside? He even gave birth to a child." Lu Shuang was getting more and more agitated. Baya's eyes turned red. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held it in and didn't show it. "I'm angry because I care." "I don't want to be angry," Baya said coldly. "But you still care. You're still sad. It's not that you don't want to talk about it, but it doesn't hurt. Sujiran is too much. Let's go. Let's give him a big one and piss him off." Lu Shuang pulled Baya away. "Cool girl, don't be like this. If I'm like him, I'll be sorry to myself." Baya was unwilling. Lu Shuang had a sly look in his eyes. "Fine. Let's go for dinner." As soon as they were out of the door, Lu Shuang made a call. "Bro, do you have the general's VIP card? Lend it to me. I'll treat you to dinner another day." Baya looked at Lu Shuang. She asked confusedly, "Aren't I treating? You treat. My bro is paying. We don't need his card. He gave it to other women. In order not to harm other girls, we must use it up." Lu Shuang smiled and held Baya's arm, pulling her away. "That's not good. I'll pay for it. I'll swipe my card. Just give me the money. Let's go to my house first. I'll do your makeup for you. Your face is so pale. Their security will call the police." Lu Shuang said sneakily. Baya was speechless. In the general's club, Baya sat on the chair. She pulled her neckline nervously. The hem was too short. She looked at Lu Shuang's excited face. She felt like she had fallen into a trap. Lu Shuang not only made her wear a V-neck spaghetti strap skirt, but also put on so much makeup that even her mother couldn't recognize her. "When are we leaving?" Baya urged. She had drunk too much. Her head was very heavy now. "What's the hurry? Do you know what kind of people are in this VIP room?" Lu Shuang asked with sparkling eyes. "Aliens. Don't tell me when you started studying ET." Baya was dispirited. "You're so imaginative. The people here are all officers above the rank of first lieutenant. They're strong, powerful, influential, and good-looking. If you can seduce one of them, you'll definitely be able to enjoy yourself tonight." Lu Shuang revealed his purpose. Baya pressed her forehead. She closed her eyes for a while and murmured, "You're crazy." "I don't want to." Lu Shuang glanced at the door. A man with an imposing aura walked in. Even the lobby manager went to greet him. He didn't enter the lobby. Instead, he was guided by the manager to the expensive diamond room. The point was that the man was really good-looking. His facial features were as sharp as a knife. They were perfect. He was like a work of art created by God. He was outstanding. It was him. Lu Shuang crooked his finger at the bartender and said sneakily, "Give me a glass of water." The bartender passed the water to Lu Shuang. She threw a pink pill in and pushed Bai Ye. "Xiaoye, wake up. Drink this glass of water. I'll get someone to send you to bed." Chapter 7. Drink more. Lu Shuang urged. He was afraid that if Bai Ye drank too little, the medicine would not take effect. Bai Ye thought that it was to sober her up. Her head was heavy, so she gulped down 2 more mouthfuls. Her stomach was too full. Her stomach was churning violently. She ran to the washroom and vomited everything. After vomiting, her head became even dizzier. Lu Shuang held Bai Ye, worried that she would vomit out all the medicine, and her efforts would be in vain. He put the glass of water against Bai Ye's lips. "Drink 2 more mouthfuls, and you'll be fine in a while." Bai Ye did not suspect anything and drank all the water. Soon, the heat spread from her spine and spread everywhere. Her vision began to blur, and her body became limp. She leaned on Lu Shuang. Lu Shuang held Bai Ye, walked to the door of the diamond room, and knocked. Gu Lingqing opened the door, looked at her indifferently, and said coldly, "Who are you looking for?" Lu Shuang was shocked by his aura. Looking at him from a close distance, he was so handsome that it took one's breath away. For her sister's happiness, she was ready to go all out. "Your girlfriend is drunk, please send her back." Lu Shuang pushed Bai Ye out. Gu Lingqing dodged alertly, and his sharp eyes glanced at Bai Ye. He paused for a moment, and was very surprised. Seeing that she was about to fall to the ground, he quickly grabbed Bai Ye's hand. Bai Ye leaned on his shoulder softly. The strong smell of alcohol on her body wafted in his face. Doubts flashed through his mind, and he looked at the door. The girl just now had disappeared. "Is she your girlfriend?" Su Changhao looked at Bai Ye in surprise, and the corners of his mouth raised. "She's quite pretty, it seems that my sister is going to be sad." Bai Ye squinted her eyes, and she was very uncomfortable. She pulled her V-neck and said vaguely, "I'm not feeling well." Gu Lingqing lowered her head to look at her. At one glance, she saw that her eyes narrowed. If this continued, she would be exposed. He picked her up, turned his back to Su Changhao, and said coldly, "I'll send her back first. We haven't gotten to the point yet." Su Changhao stood up. "What you said before was all nonsense. Tell me the main point over the phone." He carried her and left without looking back. Bai Ye tilted his head and looked at Gu Lingqing in confusion. There were many overlapping shadows in front of him. She couldn't even see who it was. Vaguely, he even began to hallucinate. The discomfort and heat in her body became more and more obvious. That uncomfortable feeling made it difficult for her to speak. Gu Lingqing entered the VIP elevator. She cupped his cheek. Gu Lingqing's entire body froze as he stared straight ahead. "Do you want me tonight?" Bai Ye asked gently. He frowned slightly on his expressionless face. Mo Lian's eyes deepened as he looked down at her. The memories from 3 years ago came to his mind. He clearly remembered the feeling of having her. Because he couldn't stop, even when she begged for mercy, under the effect of the drug, he didn't stop when his mind was collapsing. He even desired more. "You're drunk." Gu Lingqing looked away and said coldly. Bai Ye couldn't accept it. Did he really not want to touch her? She turned his face and gave her red lips. The moment their lips touched, there was a flash of light. Gu Lingqing's back was stiff. He didn't react or retreat. She glanced at his lips, and all her tenderness was used in this kiss. A murmur came out of her breath without reservation. Gu Lingqing felt his body tense up. After drinking, she took the initiative, which made her even more charming. She was more mature and charming than 3 years ago. He was the one who changed her from a girl to a woman. She also became more charming. There was a ding. The elevator door opened. Gu Lingqing turned his face away and walked quickly to the car. Baiya felt uncomfortable. She couldn't reach his lips. Lieutenant Colonel Shang was waiting by the car. He saw that their superior chief didn't push away in anger when he was kissed for the first time. Dumbfounded, he opened his mouth. "Open the door," Gu Lingqing ordered. "Okay." Lieutenant Colonel Shang opened the back door. Gu Lingqing put Baiya in the back seat and sat next to her. She rushed up, unbuttoned his shirt in a hurry, and lowered her head to kiss him. Her small tongue slid across his skin, searching for something, until it reached his heart. Gu Lingqing frowned and clenched his fists. He was struggling with his mind. Baiya felt very uncomfortable when she didn't get a response. Her eyes were filled with tears. She said softly, "Kiss me, huh?" Gu Lingqing was about to break down. 3 years ago, she didn't know anything. She was as clean as a piece of white paper. Now, she was so hot that she was like a succubus. Lieutenant Colonel Shang was curious and wanted to look back. Gu Lingqing glanced at Lieutenant Colonel Shang with his sharp eyes. He tightened his jaw and ordered domineeringly, "Don't look back without my order. Unless you don't want your eyes anymore." Lieutenant Colonel Shang didn't dare to look. He straightened his back and looked forward. Baiya was annoyed by his indifference, and her heart ached. She kissed his earlobe and asked pitifully, "Don't you want to touch me that much?" Gu Lingqing's Adam's apple moved sexily. God knew how much willpower he needed now. Except for that time with her, he had never touched other women. He was at the age where he was full of vigor. He pinched her chin and raised it. His cold eyes were a little aggressive, and his breath was on her face. "Are you sure?" Baiya looked at him. That feeling was strange. It made her a little scared but also expectant. She and Su Jiran were husband and wife. They should have been together a long time ago, shouldn't they? Her big watery eyes were red, and she nodded shyly. His dark eyes were shining, and his resolute face was tense. He said in a low voice, "Don't you regret it?" "I won't regret it," Baiya said with certainty. Lieutenant Colonel Shang's face turned red, and he asked carefully, "Chief, should I get off the car by the roadside, or send you to the hotel?" "To the military area," Gu Lingqing ordered. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. The warm air aroused her lingering sweetness, and the fire flowing in their blood slowly burned their spirits. It was so hot that it seemed to burn them. Baiya whispered. Apart from that mysterious man, she had never been touched by anyone else. Pain occupied all of Baiya's body, and her body trembled slightly. Her reaction was beyond his expectation. Could it be that she and Su Jiran had never been together? How could it be? They had been married for 3 years. The realization made him very uncomfortable. He deliberately didn't think about it and deepened the kiss. Chapter 8. As soon as he returned to the room, he gently placed her on the bed. A moment later, her dress was thrown on the floor. Her music was definitely the catalyst for his hormones. He endured the pain. This time, he wanted to take care of her feelings. He didn't want to let her only feel pain like 3 years ago. Her eyes were closed and her eyelashes fluttered. He realized a serious problem. She didn't even know who he was. His ink lotus eyes tightened, and he got up in irritation. He walked quickly to the bathroom and turned on the tap. The cold water poured down from his head. His gaze became even deeper and darker. After it calmed down, he walked out. Baiya was already asleep. Her clothes were still on the floor. Her slender legs were slightly bent and there were mermaid lines on her flat abdomen. Sexy, enchanting, and cold. He helped her put on her clothes. He gently placed her little head in the middle of the pillow and covered her with a blanket. He sat on the bed and stared at her. The room was very quiet. It was so quiet that it seemed like the overflowing passion and the overlapping of their souls were just an illusion. 3 years ago, he was the one who ruined her first time. Was it because of him that her relationship with her husband was so bad now? Guilt and pity flowed through his eyes. He got up and walked out of the door. Lieutenant Colonel Shang was holding Yuding in his hands. "Chief, let her eat this within 72 hours. She won't get pregnant." Gu Lingqing frowned. "She doesn't need to eat this. Is she in her safe period?" Lieutenant Colonel Shang asked in surprise. Gu Lingqing looked at Lieutenant Colonel Shang coldly. In his silence, he seemed to be able to kill without a trace. Lieutenant Colonel Shang didn't dare to look at him and lowered his head. Gu Lingqing glanced at Su Ting and Lieutenant Colonel Shang's hands. There was a complicated look in his deep eyes. "I didn't touch her." "Ha!" Lieutenant Colonel Shang paused. Didn't that mean that the chief hadn't had sex yet? That was too unfortunate. He didn't understand the chief's taste at all. How could he be so abstinent? "Go and arrange a female orderly to take care of her. Wash your brain clean of what happened tonight," Gu Lingqing ordered. "Oh." Lieutenant Colonel Shang replied. "In addition, go and buy some of the most high-end cosmetics," Gu Lingqing ordered again. "Oh." Lieutenant Colonel Shang looked at the bureau chief suspiciously. What was the bureau chief thinking? He didn't want a piece of fat meat that was already in his mouth, but he still wanted it. He didn't understand. In the morning Baiya opened his eyes. She had a terrible headache because of her hangover. He sat up and looked around. The blanket was army green. 2 books were neatly placed on the bedside table. One was closed with a bookmark, and the other was a Russian book, open and full of notes. Opposite the bed was a bookshelf full of books. On the bookshelf were 2 hanging baskets, a red flag, and dozens of trophies. The whole room was filled with a masculine smell. Not hers. Baiya frowned. Her memory ended when Lu Shuang handed her a glass of water. After that, she couldn't remember anything at all. She drank herself into a coma. Just as he was about to get up, an orderly came in with a tray. On the tray were some toiletries. Baiya was surprised. "Who are you? Why am I here?" The orderly smiled at Baiya. "The bureau chief asked me to take care of you last night. These are your toiletries." Bureau chief. Baiya had no memory of it. "Yes. You can wash up first." Little Chin pushed open the bathroom door, put the things on the dressing table, and went out. Baiya walked into the bathroom suspiciously. On the dressing table, there were neatly placed men's products. She felt a strange sense of awkwardness. She slept on a man's bed last night. Walking in front of the mirror, Baiya was shocked when she saw herself in it. She had dark circles under her eyes. Her fake eyelashes were gone, and her face was smudged. She quickly brushed her teeth and washed her face. However, those dark circles stubbornly couldn't be washed away. A bottle of makeup remover was placed in front of her. Baiya raised her head. Gu Lingqing looked at her deeply. Under his thick eyebrows, there was a pair of handsome and cold eyes. He didn't look angry but looked powerful. Baiya recognized him. He was the bureau chief who saved her that day. She had no memory of how she came here. I'm sorry, I was very drunk yesterday. Baya apologized. Okay. He made a sound from his throat and said in a deep voice, use this makeup remover to wash up. Oh, thank you. Baya took it. He put a set of cosmetics on the dressing table. You can use these. I don't use women's cosmetics. After saying that, Gu Lingqing turned around. Baya looked at the brand. It was a French brand of Guerlain. A 30 ml bottle of moisturizer from this brand cost more than 15,000. She couldn't afford it. She went out with the gift bag of cosmetics. Gu Lingqing sat on the sofa. Even his sitting posture was upright, noble, and elegant. He was holding the Russian book that he had just taken notes on and reading it attentively. There was a bowl of porridge, a fried dough stick, a glass of milk, and a bowl of soup on the coffee table in front of the sofa. Baya walked to him. He didn't even raise his head, as if she didn't exist. Well, I can't take this. Baya put the gift bag next to the sofa. His eyes were still on the book, as if he didn't want to talk to her. Baya was very embarrassed. She was ready to leave and took a step towards the door. Finish the breakfast on the table before you leave, Gu Lingqing said in a deep voice. Baya looked at Gu Lingqing. He still didn't look at her. If there weren't only the two of them here, she would think that he was talking to someone else. Baya sat in front of the dining table. The bowl next to it is for sobering up. Drink it first, Gu Lingqing said again. Baya looked at him suspiciously. He didn't look at her, but why did she feel that he saw everything? She really had a headache. She picked up the bowl and finished it. She was suspicious. Gu Lingqing's attitude towards her was so strange. Could it be that she was talking nonsense when she was drunk yesterday? I was drunk yesterday. I didn't say anything overboard, did I? Baya said worriedly. He flipped a page elegantly and asked casually, what overboard did you think you would say? Did she really say it? A blush flew to her face. Baya smiled awkwardly. I heard from my bad friend that I will talk nonsense when I'm drunk. You don't have to believe it, Chief. He raised his head, and his dark eyes were dyed with an unfathomable depth. He stopped for a second on her rosy face and saw her nervousness and embarrassment. His cold eyes narrowed and shot out a ray of coldness. Baya lowered her eyes, and her long eyelashes covered the tears in her eyes. Get out of here now, or I'll kill you. Bai Bing said ferociously. Baya stood up and said softly, Mom, have a good rest. I'll come to see you another day. Get out. Baya turned around and walked out of the mental hospital. She looked back and glanced at Bai Bing's room. She remembered that in the 3rd year of high school, her grades were very good, but her family was very poor. Bai Bing knelt on the ground in the downtown area and begged. Whether it was the hot summer or the cold winter, she knelt for a whole year and got her college tuition. She knew that her mother loved her. It was just that no one wanted to be sick. When they were sick, they would be mentally confused, but there was nothing they could do. She took a deep breath. She didn't want her mother to worry and affect her condition. She went to the market to buy some vegetables and went to Su Jiran's place. The password to the door of the villa was still 199203116. It was her birthday, and the password had not been changed. She felt somewhat comforted in her heart. She walked in with the vegetables. The room was deserted, and the trash can in the kitchen was quiet. Obviously, this man did not come back often to eat. She opened the refrigerator, which was full of wine, and Okamoto. Baya's eyes darkened. Her heart, in an instant, fell into a bottomless ice lake. The cold invaded her brain. She was used to it, wasn't she? She didn't come here today to check on the ward, not to catch up, but to ask for his help. Baya put the extra ingredients in the refrigerator and walked into the kitchen. She found the apron from the cupboard. She wrapped it, washed, chopped, cooked, and stewed the vegetables. Everything was ready. She wanted to give his house a clean. But she found. Except for the living room, kitchen, and bathroom, the other doors were locked, including their new house. And she didn't have the key. Baya twitched the corner of her mouth, picked up the landline, and called Sujiran. 3 rings. Sujiran picked up. Hello. This is Baya. Sujiran curled the corner of his mouth and said sarcastically, "Are you in my house to catch us in the act?" She could hear the sarcasm in his voice. She was used to it. "No, I'm on leave today, so I prepared dinner for you," Baya said calmly. "Who allowed you to do this?" Sujiran's voice suddenly turned cold. "Ha!" Baya chuckled. "I allowed me to do this." She hung up the phone. She frowned and her eyes flashed with annoyance. She needed his help, so she should bear with it. Click. The electronic door opened. Baya looked at the entrance. Sujiran walked in, his charming eyes locked onto her as he smiled devilishly. "You're not here to apologize, are you? You don't want a divorce?" She didn't think she had done anything wrong. "Sujiran, I agree to the divorce, but I have conditions." Baya didn't want to insist anymore. As long as he accompanied her to Si Bai Bing once a month, she was willing to let him and herself go. A sharp light flashed across Sujiran's eyes, and his eyes were burning with anger. He stared at her. "Do you know what kind of woman I hate the most?" Baya looked at him quietly. She knew that what he said would definitely not be pleasant. Sujiran gestured at her, not hiding his disgust at all. Wearing an apron, wearing slippers, and a slovenly obeisance. "Are you worthy of me? You want to divorce me, and you still want to talk to me about conditions. Where do you get your confidence from?" Baya looked at Sujiran coldly. "If I tell the world that you have an illegitimate child outside, your career will definitely be affected. That child isn't mine. It's impossible for me to leave my seed in their stomachs." "You're thinking too much," Sujiran said conceitedly. "How can you not get your feet wet if you always walk by the river? I'll divorce you, and you can do whatever you want in the future. I just need you to accompany me to see my mother once a month." Baya negotiated rationally. Sujiran sneered. "See her once a month? How can you think of that? You're really unscrupulous. It's useless to me." Chapter 10. Sujiran stood in front of her, frowned, and sniffed. There was the smell of smoke, alcohol, and the unique smell of a luxurious place. His dark eyes instantly turned sinister, and he asked, "Where did you go yesterday?" "I accompanied Lu Shuang to the General's Order Club." Baya didn't lie. She was upright, magnanimous, and had a clear conscience. Sujiran's eyes were filled with disgust, and he said disdainfully, "You're so disgusting." Baya sneered, "Same here." She walked outside. "Wait," Sujiran said coldly. Baya turned back to look at him. Sujiran's cold gaze swept across the table. "Clean this up. I don't like the dishes you cooked." Baya looked at him quietly. Her heart was aching. No matter how dirty she was, she only had one man, and she was raped. He was clean, and he had already had more women than she could count. A wave of anger rushed from her heart to her brain. "You really don't deserve to eat the dishes I cooked," Baya said coldly, walked towards the table, and then waved her hand. The porcelain bowls fell to the ground with a clatter. The dishes and soup were everywhere. Souljourney's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he grabbed Baiya's arm. He was so forceful, as if he was going to break her hand. He said coldly, "Clean up before you leave." "In your dreams," Baiya replied bluntly. A murderous intent flashed past his eyes, and he reached out to strangle her neck, blocking her windpipe. Baiya felt that it was difficult to breathe, and she looked at him coldly and hatefully. Their marriage was purgatory, and it was better for it to end like this. If she died, he would go to jail too, and they would go to hell together. It was better than her. She was sad and aggrieved, and there was so much suffering, but there was no one to talk to. Baiya's lips curled up, and a charming smile appeared in her eyes. It was poison, needles, thorns, and determination. Souljourney was surprised and loosened his grip. Baiya couldn't take it anymore and collapsed, his hand supporting the ground. The sharp shard pierced her palm, and blood oozed out. Souljourney looked down at her condescendingly. He frowned and a strange look flashed across his eyes. "Get lost. Don't come here again." Baiya stood up, lowered his eyes, and clenched his fists. Blood dripped onto the ground, forming a bewitching red. She walked towards the door without looking at Souljourney. When one was sad, one would feel heartache when one's loved ones saw it. When one's enemies saw it, one would feel delighted. When one's relatives or enemies saw it, one would only feel good after a meal. "Don't be sad, don't cry." Baiya washed her hands at the pharmacy, bought some bandages, and took care of the wound herself. Lu Shuang called. "Xiaoya, I'm at your doorstep. When are you coming back?" Baiya also had something to ask Lu Shuang. What happened to her, and why was she at that soldier's house? "I'll be back in a while." Not long after, Baiya came out of the lift. Lu Shuang looked at Baiya's expression. Seeing that she didn't look well, his heart skipped a beat. "Shuangniu, what happened to me last night?" Baiya went straight to the point. "Well, I was drunk last night too. I don't know what happened, and I wanted to ask you about it," Lu Shuang said guiltily. "Baiya, I don't remember, come in first." Baiya opened the door. Lu Shuang saw that Baiya didn't pursue the matter, and he immediately chuckled. She followed him in and saw the cosmetics bag on the coffee table. "Oh my God, France Gerlin, you won the lottery, buying such expensive cosmetics." Lu Shuang opened the gift box directly, and his eyes widened in shock. "These cost 200,000 to 300,000, right?" "What?" Baiya was shocked too. She thought it was only a few tens of thousands, and she thought that she could pay it back if she had money. 200,000 to 300,000. She didn't have that much money. Lu Shuang found a shopping receipt, took a look, picked it up, and shook it. "I said, 238,000, you're rich." "It's not mine, can you help me sell this cosmetics?" Baiya said helplessly. "Why sell it? Isn't Souljourney quite rich?" Lu Shuang put the receipt into the gift box. Baiya's eyes dimmed, and she said with certainty, "I won't use him. Women have to be independent, financially independent. I support you on this point." "But..." Lu Shuang looked at her ambiguously. "Is this a gift from another man? A soldier gave it to me yesterday. I didn't do anything to deserve it, so we won't have anything to do with each other in the future. It's not good to take other people's things," Baiya explained. A light flashed in Lu Shuang's eyes. Was the man yesterday so rich? It seemed that she had good taste. How could they not have anything to do with each other? "Return it, you have to return it. You sold it to me, and I'll transfer the money to you later. When you return it to him, treat him to a meal. By the way, did you do it last night?" Lu Shuang asked sneakily. Baya blushed, and said embarrassedly, "Of course not. What are you thinking about? You should throw yourself at that kind of man," Lu Shuang suggested. The image of Gu Lingqing's cold and noble face flashed in Baya's mind, and he had an unapproachable aura. "He's not a man who can be thrown down," Baya said with certainty. "Where there's a will, there's a way. You just need to work hard," Lu Shuang suggested. "I might not succeed if I work hard, but if I don't work hard, I'll definitely be more comfortable." "It's impossible for me and him," Baya said, and stuffed the bag of cosmetics into Lu Shuang's arms. "Take it." Lu Shuang had no choice but to sit on the sofa. He transferred the money to Baya, and asked suspiciously, "I gave you the money. How are you going to return it to him?" Baya walked to the fridge, took out 2 bottles of my dong, and handed one to Lu Shuang. "I have his phone number. He said to call him when he arrives at the entrance of the military area," Baya said, and sat next to Lu Shuang. Her phone rang with a message. Lu Shuang's money had been transferred to her account. "Call him now. There's still time, and we can treat him to a meal," Lu Shuang suggested with a smile. Baya didn't want to owe others money for too long. She took out the note written by Gu Lingqing from her bag. His name and phone number were written on it. Lu Shuang craned his neck to look at it. Gu Lingqing. His handwriting is smooth and fluent. He's very cultured, knowledgeable, and experienced. He's a rare talent. Baya looked at Lu Shuang strangely. "It's a pity that you don't become a fortune teller." "Hee, I think so too." Call him now, Lu Shuang urged. Baya made the call. After 3 rings, the call was picked up. "Hello, I'm Baya," Baya said nervously. His deep voice came from the other end of the phone. "I'll come back in about an hour to return the money. Is that convenient?" Baya went straight to the point. "Come over." Gu Lingqing hung up the phone after he said that. "He doesn't talk much." Lu Shuang was surprised. "That's a lot," Baya said with a smile. Lu Shuang was speechless. "I have a pair of shoes for you. I'm too small, and it's a brand. It's a waste to throw them away," Lu Shuang said with a smile, and a cunning look flashed in his eyes. Chapter 11. Baya had just arrived at the entrance of the military base. A Land Rover drove to her side and stopped. The car was very familiar. The black car window rolled down. Gu Lingqing looked at her sternly, his chin glancing at the car. "Get in." He used a commanding tone, not allowing anyone to reject him. Baya guessed that he was avoiding her, so she opened the door to the front passenger seat and got in. In the car, he didn't say anything, just leaned against the car. The atmosphere was very stiff. How do I transfer the money to you?" Baya asked nervously. He didn't look at her, there was no warmth in his eyes. "I don't take bribes." It's the money for your cosmetics," Baya explained. "If you don't like those cosmetics, just throw them away," Gu Lingqing said coldly. It didn't sound like a joke, it seemed like it was true. Baya had a strange feeling in her heart, she didn't like his domineering attitude. "You're making things difficult for me, it's equivalent to me taking your things for nothing, it's not appropriate, after all, we have nothing to do with each other." Gu Lingqing looked at her deeply and asked, "You want to have something to do with me?" Baya, she could hear the ambiguous tone in his voice, this feeling made her feel very uncomfortable, she faintly rejected it. "I have a husband." "You think I don't know?" Gu Lingqing looked ahead and continued driving. Baya couldn't figure out what Gu Lingqing was thinking, she looked out of the window in annoyance. "Help me do something," Gu Lingqing said in a low voice. He was stating a sentence. Baya didn't say anything, she pursed her lips. Don't ask what it is. Gu Lingqing looked at her and said. Since you called me, it's definitely something I can help you with. Although I don't remember what happened the day before yesterday, I think you definitely helped me. Of course, I should help, I can help, Baiya said straightforwardly. But she used you. This word alienated the relationship between them. Be my girlfriend, Gu Lingqing said lightly. Baiya looked at him in shock and disbelief. It's just a fake. Gu Lingqing added, glancing at her. It's just a party. I'm married. It's not suitable for me to pretend to be your girlfriend, right? Baiya reminded. The corner of Gu Lingqing's mouth twitched. His vast and boundless eyes were like a hidden ocean with a profound meaning. It's because you're married that I'm not worried about you having improper thoughts about me, isn't it? Baiya paused. It seemed like what he said made sense. It was impossible for him to have improper thoughts about a married woman. Otherwise, they would have. Baiya cleared his throat. What was she thinking? His cell phone rang. Seeing that it was from Lu Shuang, she answered the call. How was your date with that soldier? Lu Shuang asked happily. Baiya's cell phone was leaky. She suspected that Gu Lingqing would hear it. She felt awkward and lowered her voice. What date? Don't talk nonsense. Fall down, fall down, fall down. He will definitely let you enjoy it. Ha ha ha. Lu Shuang's hearty laughter came through. If you continue to talk nonsense like this, I'm hanging up. Baiya was a little annoyed. I'm just joking with you. I have a gift for you later. Have fun. Fall down, fall down, fall down. Lu Shuang said and hung up the phone faster. The car suddenly became quiet. Baiya licked her lips. She glanced at Gu Lingqing. He looked at the car coldly. She didn't know how much he heard and wanted to explain. But if he didn't hear it, her explanation would seem guilty. In the end, she said nothing. She looked out of the window. The car passed by the Sheraton Hotel. Su Jiran walked out with a beautiful woman in his arms. He was in a good mood and whispered to the beautiful woman in his arms. Then he showed an evil smile and kissed the woman's forehead. Baiya slowly turned her face away and leaned against the chair. She closed her eyes and looked at the front indifferently. Mist gathered in her eyes and spread out. Just like her feelings, she compressed all her memories of Su Jiran into that small room in the deepest part of her heart. If she didn't touch it or think about it, she wouldn't feel heartache. The phone rang. She saw that it was Su Jiran's call. She paused and didn't answer. The phone rang again. She answered it. Where are you? Su Jiran's tone was frivolous as usual. From time to time, there was the sound of a woman laughing and panting. Where am I? You don't seem to care. Baiya showed a trace of anger in her coldness. Go back to your apartment within an hour. I'll go to your place, Su Jiran said coldly. Baiya hung up Su Jiran's call, turned off the phone and threw it into her bag. Gu Lingqing looked at her. I can let you get out of the car now. No need. She looked ahead resolutely. Gu Lingqing's deep eyes showed pity. He frowned and felt annoyed. He sped up and drove on the road. After a while, the car drove to the dock. They stopped in front of the big cruise with the Gu flag. Gu Lingqing opened the door for Baiya. She got out of the car. Gu Lingqing put one hand on her shoulder and hugged her gently, leaving enough space between them. He had a smell that she liked, like the fragrance of mugwort leaves. There was a faint sense of peace and leisure. She promised to pretend to be his girlfriend. She could accept this kind of arm around his shoulder. Even if she was pretending, she had to make a good scene. They boarded the ship. Su Changhao walked over with his hands in his pockets leisurely. His gaze shifted to Bai Ye and glanced at Gu Lingqing. Was she okay yesterday? Gu Lingqing responded. He put more force on Bai Ye's shoulder and pulled her into his arms. Su Changhao raised his eyebrows and sighed. Looks like my sister's heart can't take it tonight. Go in, they've been waiting for you for a long time. Gu Lingqing hugged Bai Ye and went in. The ship set sail and was a little shaky. Bai Ye couldn't stand steadily. His hand moved from her shoulder to her waist, firmly stabilizing her body. Bai Ye felt numb at her waist as if there was an electric current. Her back stiffened and she looked at him. It'll be fine when the ship is stable, he said in a low voice, as if this action was just to protect her. She was trying to test the heart of a gentleman. Thank you. They walked in. Inside was the layout of a small bar. There were a lot of people. Those people saw her and Gu Lingqing walking in, and they were very intimate. There was surprise, jealousy, provocation, and excitement in their eyes. Especially the pair of beautiful phoenix eyes that were looking at her. The sharpness in them seemed to want to shoot her to death on the spot. Bai Ye could see her hostility. Let me introduce you to my sister, Su Shaoling, Su Changhao introduced awkwardly. Chapter 12. I don't need to explain to you whether I like you or not. Gu Lingqing said indifferently. Su Shaoling's sharp eyes glanced at Bai Ye with hatred. She said aggressively, Are you Gu Lingqing's girlfriend? Do you think you deserve him? Gu Lingqing protected her in his arms and said in a low voice, Ignore her. Su Shaoling was irritated to the point of going crazy. She grabbed Bai Ye's hand with great strength. Her wrist hurt. She said anxiously, I'm asking you. Are you his girlfriend? Bai Ye analyzed the relationship between them and kept silent. Su Shaoling. Gu Lingqing pulled Bai Ye behind him and said coldly, You are hurting my girlfriend. Su Shaoling ignored Gu Lingqing. She shouted at Bai Ye with red eyes, Are you his girlfriend? Why don't you say it? Are you mute? This man is not yours. How can you be so shameless? I'm afraid you are the shameless one. Bai Ye said coldly. Su Shaoling's eyes were full of killing intent. You are a clown in my eyes now. How much money did Gu Lingqing give you? I will give you 10 times more. Disappear now. Don't you think you are the clown now? Only stupid women ask for love. Smart women ask for dignity. Bai Ye said righteously. Su Shaoling slapped Bai Ye's face. Gu Lingqing held Su Shaoling's arm faster. His black eyes were covered with a layer of cold light. He warned, Don't go too far. Am I the one who is going too far? You are my fiancé, but you brought another woman here. Su Shaoling was trembling with anger. It is enough to have Zhou Hailan. Don't force me. I have never admitted you as my fiancé. A dark light flashed in Gu Lingqing's dark pupils. He said sternly, If you treat her like how you treated Jiani, I won't let you go. The atmosphere instantly froze to zero. All right, stop arguing. Su Changhao came over to be the peacemaker. He held Su Shaoling's hand and said, Stop fooling around, sister. After all, you are not his fiancée. Su Shaoling shook off Su Changhao's hand. Her eyes were red as she stared at Gu Lingqing. Do you dare to kiss her? If you kiss her, I will believe that she is your girlfriend. Gu Lingqing remained silent. Su Shaoling snorted disdainfully, You don't dare, Gu Lingqing. In this world, only I am worthy of you. Don't run away anymore. Gu Lingqing sneered and turned to face Bai Ye. There was a strange light in his eyes, which shocked Bai Ye. She subconsciously took a step back. He pressed down on the back of her head, his warm lips touching hers. A string of electric current flashed through his lips. Baiya's eyes widened in surprise, and she was in a trance for a moment. He had acted. She pursed her lips tightly, not letting him have his way. His slender fingers went into her hair bun and pressed her neck, forcing her to raise her head. His tongue pried open her teeth, and the strong taste of sunshine entered her mouth and the tip of her nose. Baiya's heart was beating wildly. She didn't like kissing a strange, emotionless man. She pushed his chest away with her hand. He grabbed her resisting hand, and the kiss became domineering and wild. Breathing heavily on her face, he kissed her deeper and deeper, more and more lingering. Baiya remembered that 3 years ago, the man was also domineering. Baiya was trembling all over, and she hit his back. Gu Lingqing couldn't stop himself, so he let go of her red and swollen lips. Baiya looked at him defensively, wanting to slap his face. But she had promised to pretend. It was not kind of her to slap him. Her wariness made his eyes darken even more. Su Shaoling clenched her fists, and her eyes were bloodshot. She turned her face away, walked to the bar, and poured a glass of wine. She was so jealous that she was about to go crazy. Su Changhao sighed and comforted Su Shaoling, "Give up, there are many good men in the world. But they are not Gu Lingqing." Su Shaoling stubbornly drank up the wine in the glass. She looked at Baiya with jealousy, holding 2 bottles of wine, and shouted, "Hey, that woman, do you dare to drink with me?" Baiya looked at Su Shaoling. "How do you want to drink? I will do it for her," Gu Lingqing said with disgust. Su Shaoling smashed a bottle of beer and lost control of her emotions. "Why should you drink? This is a battle between women, I will declare war on her now, Gu Lingqing, I will say it again, you are mine, before that, I allow you to hurt me." Baiya looked at her crazy look, and her heart ached faintly. Were all the women in the world the same? If they couldn't get their lover's heart, they would feel pain. Because of the pain, they would rather hurt themselves to vent. She was not in a good mood. For her mother, for herself, and more because of Su Jiran. "Okay, I will drink with you," Baiya said softly, and walked towards Su Shaoling. Su Shaoling was surprised that she dared to challenge her, and smiled in disdain. She would not get drunk even after 1,000 drinks, Baiya would definitely lose. "If you lose, you will strip naked and dance here to liven things up. If you don't want to, then give my man back to me," Su Shaoling said with hatred. "What if you lose?" Baiya asked lightly, and her elegant eyes flowed with sympathy. Perhaps Su Shaoling did not understand, when a man did not love, even if he got married, it would still be purgatory. She had been through it. "I will not lose," Su Shaoling said conceitedly. "If you lose, let yourself go. Run to the deck and shout, 'Gu Lingqing, I don't love you anymore.' Can I?" Baiya said softly, and slightly raised the corner of her mouth. If she did not love Su Jiran, she could ignore him fooling around with other women. If she did not love Su Jiran, she would not be hurt. She hoped that this no love could come earlier, so that it would not be so painful even if she kept her dignity. "Okay, don't say that I did not give you a chance." 3 bottles of beer, let's see who can drink faster, Su Shaoling said straightforwardly. Baiya took the beer, and just as she raised it, her hand was held by Gu Lingqing. Concern flashed in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, "Don't drink." She smiled at him, and her eyes wavered. There was something wet surging in them. "If I get drunk, don't I still have you?" Baiya said softly. Her trust made Gu Lingqing stunned. His black eyes became more and more serene. He stared at her elegant and sad face, and let go of her hand. If you get drunk, you still have me, Gu Lingqing promised. Baiya raised the beer and put it into her mouth. One bottle, followed by the other. She did not have time to swallow the beer, and it flowed on her clothes. But her heart still hurt so much. After finishing the 3 bottles of beer, Baiya put down the empty bottle and wiped the wine stain on the side of her mouth. Seeing the 3 empty bottles on Su Xiaoling's table, she showed a sad smile. Chapter 13. She lost. In the game of love, the one who gave sincerely would lose, and she was the one who gave completely sincerely. Su Xiaoling raised her chin proudly and said sarcastically, "Take off your clothes and dance, or give up to Gu Lingqing. Choose one. I want to see whether you want your face or your body." "Enough, Su Xiaoling, I'm not someone you can gamble with." Gu Lingqing stood in front of Baiya. "I'm willing to gamble with you." Su Xiaoling's eyes widened, and her eyes were bloodshot. "If I, Su Xiaoling, lost, I would also run to the deck and shout, 'I don't love you, Gu Lingqing.' Do you know? I really don't want to love you." Baiya listened in a daze, and her eyelashes trembled. At the same time that Su Jiran hated her, she also didn't want to love him. "I'll dance," Baiya said calmly. "Music." Su Xiaoling shouted fiercely. The music started. She walked onto the dance floor and danced to the rhythm of the music. It was as if she was the only one in the world, and nothing else existed. In fact, she was the only one in the world. The person she loved didn't love her, and the person who loved her was nowhere to be found. "Take off your clothes," Su Xiaoling shouted with a ferocious look. Baiya looked at her. Fortunately, she kept her dignity, and didn't want Su Xiaoling to be so hateful. Baiya unbuttoned her shirt. Her slender waist swayed rhythmically, and her gorgeous and fantastical movements displayed her superb dancing skills. She was seductive at times, and gentle at other times, like a dancing elf, skillfully performing in the music. Everyone was stunned, including Gu Lingqing. His eyes were locked on her. He didn't know that she could dance, and she could dance so well. The men around her stared at her like wolves. Gu Lingqing frowned. "Su Changhao, take your sister away." Su Xiaoling felt that she went for wool and came home shorn. She let that woman steal the limelight. Gu Lingqing took off his suit jacket and walked towards her. He wrapped it around her, blocking everyone's greedy gazes. Her body exuded a sweet fragrance and moist heat, directly into his nose. Hee hee. Ha. Baiya smiled foolishly. Her eyes were filled with undisguised sadness, and her tears were about to drip. "I must look stupid right now, right?" His black lotus eyes were very deep as he blurted out, "You want me to like you?" Baiya thought she was hearing things and looked at him. She thought she had misheard. Gu Lingqing pulled her away and said in a low voice, "You're drunk." Baiya lowered his eyes. She must be drunk. After a while, he pulled her to the second floor and handed her the key card. "You'll be staying in this room tonight. Aren't you going back tonight?" "I have to go to work tomorrow morning." Baiya was worried. "Go back to the dock tomorrow morning. I'll send you to the hospital. I won't let you be late." "Don't worry," Gu Lingqing promised. Since that was the case, she couldn't force him. After all, she wasn't the one driving the ship. "Thank you." Baiya turned around, opened the door, and walked in. He glanced at her red heels and frowned. Pity flashed in his eyes as he turned around and left. Baiya entered the room, sat on the sofa, and took off her shoes. The heels of the shoes Lu Shuang gave her were too hard. The skin on the heels was worn out. She shouldn't have asked for it. Baiya sniffed her body. It reeked of alcohol. She still had to go to work tomorrow. She changed into the disposable slippers and walked into the bathroom. She washed her hair and took a shower. She washed her clothes and hung them in the bathroom. She went out with a towel around her waist. Gu Lingqing sat on the sofa. In front of the sofa was a medical kit. He was rummaging through the things he needed. He saw Baiya coming out from the corner of his eye. He looked up and looked at her. She was only wearing a towel, revealing her beautiful collarbone. The towel could only cover her buttocks, revealing her slender, fair, and beautiful legs. Baiya was shocked when she saw him. After all, she wasn't wearing any clothes. Why are you here? She asked nervously. Come here. Gu Lingqing ordered. Baiya explained awkwardly, my clothes were washed. It's not convenient. What are you worried about? He was a little angry and said in a low voice, come here. His tone was domineering that she couldn't refuse. She could only slowly take a breath and said softly, I want to rest. Gu Lingqing ignored her and found iodine and wound patches in the medical kit. Sit down. He was too lazy to look up. He tore off the paper on both sides of the wound patch and put it on the table. Baiya knew his intention. There was a trace of warmth in her heart. She said softly, I can do it myself. Thank you. He didn't order her anymore. This woman was more stubborn than he had imagined. He directly grabbed her hand and forcefully pulled her to his side. Baiya hadn't sat down yet. He picked up her foot and put it on his lap. His movements were clean and neat, just like his previous actions, swift and decisive. Baiya was shocked. She wasn't wearing any clothes inside. That would expose her. She immediately turned her face to the side and clamped her thighs, not leaving any gap. Gu Lingqing didn't seem to notice. He picked up the iodine and applied it gently. This kind of gentleness didn't match the impression he gave others. She didn't feel any pain when the iodine was applied on her foot. On the contrary, his warm hand held her hand. It felt very comfortable. The leather of that pair of shoes is too hard. Don't wear it in the future. Gu Lingqing reminded. Okay. Baiya responded. The other foot. Gu Lingqing said in a low voice. Baiya first turned to the other side and lifted her foot. Gu Lingqing felt that her actions were strange, so he pulled her ankle into his hand. Baiya let out a soft cry. Gu Lingqing cleared his throat. His Adam's apple moved, and he lowered his head to help her treat the wound. Neither of them spoke. The air was filled with ambiguous emotions, making one's mouth dry and heart flustered. Are you done? Baiya urged. Don't move, Gu Lingqing reminded. His voice was a little hoarse, full of male hormones and danger. After we get off the boat, we won't be meeting again, right? Baiya asked. Gu Lingqing's eyes turned cold. If you don't want to meet, I believe we won't have the chance to meet in the future. What he said was also ambiguous. What did he mean by if she didn't want to and if she wanted to? Would they be able to meet? What identity would they be using to meet? After all, they lived in two different worlds. There was an occasional warm interlude in their lives. Tomorrow, she would return to her normal life. Okay. She only sent one word, but it was the correct meaning of not meeting. Gu Lingqing's face darkened. He applied the bandage on the wound and didn't wait for Baiya to retract her foot. He stood up straight and looked down at her. His deep eyes were sunken, and a trace of anger flashed through them. Chapter 14. His tone was firm and brooked no refusal. Baiya's eyes widened in surprise. She immediately stood up and said awkwardly, "Isn't this room for me?" He made a sound as if he didn't care to answer. You sleep on the bed, and I'll sleep on the sofa. She and Su Jiran had never felt like this when a man and a woman were alone in a room. Their faces instantly turned red and their minds were a little muddled. No, we're just a couple. We don't have to sleep in the same room. As soon as she said that, Gu Lingqing's dark eyes flashed with layers of darkness. He walked towards her. She wasn't his warrior, nor was she a soldier, but the domineering aura he exuded made her shiver uncontrollably. She took a step back and fell onto the sofa. Gu Lingqing pressed down and put his hands on the sofa, encircling her in his arms. His frosty eyes locked onto Baiya. She could feel a strong sense of oppression without saying a word. What's wrong? She asked. Her eyes flickered with a trace of panic. Am I a snake or a beast? Are you so eager to avoid me? He asked, not losing any of his sharpness. That's not what I mean. Baiya hurriedly explained. It was just that he was high and mighty, and she was a married woman. They were two strangers who would never have any interaction. It wasn't appropriate for them to stay in the same room. But when she said it out loud, it felt as if she didn't trust him. She didn't say it out loud and changed her words. I'll sleep on the sofa. His eyes softened a little, but they were still vast and boundless. There's only one room left. I won't touch you. Don't worry, you can sleep on the bed and I'll sleep on the sofa. Of course she trusted him. If he wanted to touch her, he would have done it yesterday. But he probably wouldn't like her. Gu Lingqing got up and walked towards the bathroom. She remembered that her clothes, pants, and skirt were still cold in the bathroom, so she shouted anxiously, "Wait a minute." He looked at her coldly, and his eyes were slightly captivated. He smiled. Why? You want to help me bathe? She was surprised that such a high and mighty gentleman would say such a thing. She felt very uncomfortable and walked towards him. No, how is that possible? I have some things inside. Let me pack them up first, then you can go in. Gu Lingqing didn't refuse and looked at her condescendingly. Baiya hurriedly put the things away. The disposable shoes were very wet. Ah! She screamed, and it looked like she was about to fall. Like a bolt of lightning, he grabbed her arm and pulled her into his embrace. His movement was too big, and the towel fell down. Gu Lingqing's bewitching eyes tightened, her body temperature rose, and she looked at her. Baiya was so embarrassed that she couldn't say anything. Her skin turned red. I'm sorry, Baiya said. Gu Lingqing released her. Baiya immediately picked up the towel and wrapped it around her body. He didn't seem to be in a hurry to leave. His burning eyes stared at her rosy face as he walked forward. Baiya retreated and leaned against the cold wall. The chilling temperature stunned her. He walked in front of her and placed his hand on her head. She felt like she was going to be burned by his gaze. Are you afraid? Gu Lingqing said in a low voice. His eyes were confused. Seeing that she didn't deny it, his eyes dimmed a little. To me, you are more like a poisonous snake or a ferocious beast. Baiya looked at him in confusion. Was he saying that she was annoying? She was the one who wasn't wearing clothes, she was the one who insisted on entering the bathroom, and she was the one who fell down. Even the bath towel falling down was so coincidental. If she were him, she would also think that she did it on purpose. I'm sorry, Baiya apologized. She lowered her head, feeling very embarrassed and uncomfortable. Gu Lingqing looked at her. I'll leave the room to you. I'm going out, he said in a low voice. He turned around, and there was a layer of illusion in his eyes. He was deeply afraid that he would do the same thing to her 3 years ago. 3 years ago, he was bewitched by the drug. Just now, It was an impulse that he couldn't explain. In the hall on the second floor, Lu Jiayi sat next to Gu Lingqing and poured tea for him elegantly. "Cousin, Grandma said that the Gu Corporation is yours. It's fine if you don't attend the press conference on Tuesday, but you must come to the banquet tonight." Gu Lingqing's clear eyes glanced at her as if he knew everything. "I can attend the banquet, but if my motive is not pure, don't even think about me attending it in the future." Lu Jiayi looked troubled and tried to persuade him. "Cousin, actually, Xiaoling has liked you since she was young. What she did in the past was because she loved you too much. Grandma also thinks that you are at a suitable age for marriage. Xiaoling is the best match for you in terms of family background, knowledge, and ability. So, tomorrow's banquet is really a trap." Gu Lingqing sneered and put down the teacup. He said coldly, "If I don't like her, I won't want her even if I have to give up the whole family business. I won't be attending tomorrow." "Then, do you like the girl who came today?" Lu Jiayi tilted her head and asked. Gu Lingqing paused. His dark eyes were as vast as the sea, making it impossible to see what he was thinking. "What are you trying to say?" "I think she's too weak. You know Grandma's criteria for choosing a daughter-in-law. I'm afraid that the path you've chosen will be difficult," Lu Jiayi said worriedly. "You're thinking too much. As long as I like her, no matter how many obstacles there are in front of me, I will clear them in advance," Gu Lingqing said confidently. He was glowing. His current achievements were earned step by step through his own hard work, not by relying on the deputy commander's father or his background that was as rich as a nation. Lu Jiayi admired her cousin very much. She smiled. "If you weren't my cousin, I might be even crazier than Xiaoling." Gu Lingqing's eyes darkened. "If I don't like her, I won't like her. I'd rather have nothing than have something inferior. I won't force myself." "Ha, I'm sure you'll dote on your wife in the future." Lu Jiayi sighed. Bai Ye's face flashed across Gu Lingqing's mind. His eyes darkened. "Help me prepare a set of women's clothing and a pair of soft cotton flat-soled leather shoes. Send them to me tomorrow before I go ashore. Also, bring me a blanket. I'll sleep in the living room tonight." "Ha! You were chased out of the room by her." This was really unexpected. Lu Jiayi teased, "Cousin's charm is unparalleled. Go do your work. Don't talk so much." Gu Lingqing frowned in annoyance. "Oh." Lu Jiayi glanced at Gu Lingqing. She stood up with a smile and walked out of the living room. Gu Lingqing lay on the sofa. He was thinking about the scene in the bathroom just now. That scene was exactly the same as what had happened 3 years ago. What would have happened if he had told her back then? Chapter 15. Bai Ye laid on the bed, unable to fall asleep. She took out her phone to play Snake. A call came in. She couldn't press the button. Her snake hit the wall and died. Bai Ye was furious. She picked up Su Jiran's call and asked impatiently, "What do you want?" "Brother Ran, come quickly. I really want it." His assistant's voice came through. Bai Ye paused for a moment, sat up, leaned against the back of the bed, and said suspiciously, "Hey. Little vixen, I really can't feed you. Where do you want it?" Su Jiran's voice came through. "Don't be like this," his assistant said coquettishly. "Then do you still want it?" Su Jiran's voice was evil and charming. The voice on the phone was getting more and more excessive. Bai Ye held the phone and listened attentively. Her eyelashes were trembling, but her eyes were extremely clear. She could feel her heart aching. It was as if she had been thrown into a meat grinder. She had difficulty breathing. However, she didn't want to hang up. Why did she still want to maintain this marriage? In this marriage, she had been hurt endlessly. She didn't feel good at all. It was just that she still remembered how good he was in the past. She still had that little bit of hope for him, so she persisted. Now, she wanted to deeply remember how cruel he was to her. So, in the future, she didn't want him anymore. Brother Ran, if Baya finds out about us, will she deal with me? Ah. The assistant's scattered voice could be heard. Su Jiran grunted. Then, he said with slight anger and annoyance, don't mention her when we're working. Ah, Brother Ran, why can't you just mention her? She won't listen, the assistant said deliberately. You know, but you still mention her in front of me. It's affecting the mood, Su Jiran said in disgust. Baya twitched the corner of her mouth. Tears quietly flowed out. It wasn't because she still loved him, but because she felt that the past Baya was pitiful. To love someone with all your strength, to be framed, betrayed, and hurt. If she insisted, she still loved, she would look down on herself. The other party hung up. Baya slowly lay back on the bed and looked at the white ceiling. He quietly felt the pain start from his heart, flow into his blood, and spread to his limbs and bones. Su Jiran Villa, the assistant's eyes flashed with a gloomy gleam. She had recorded this recording before. This time, Baya would be furious. Su Jiran came out of the bathroom. Wrapped in a towel, he looked sexy and dangerous. He glanced at his phone, picked it up casually, and opened the call log. When he saw the name Baya, his face turned cold. He looked at his assistant sharply and asked, "You called her?" The assistant was shocked, and her body trembled in fear. Her eyes turned red and tears poured out. Brother Ran, save me. I just want to apologize to her. You know, if she spouts nonsense in front of the media, my parents will know. If she adds fuel to the fire, how am I going to live in the future? Are you still in contact with that circle? Su Jiran frowned, and his gaze became sharper as he stared at the assistant. Of course not. I've left the circle for a long time. With you around, I won't go back. I've already kept my chastity. The information in Baya's hands is about the mistakes I made when I was 18 years old. Brother Ran, save me. I only love you. The assistant cried. Su Jiran glanced at her, and there was a sharp glint in his eyes. He asked Baya to go home, but she didn't come back for a long time. He was so angry that he called for other women. He had a stomach full of anger for her. When Baya saw Su Jiran's call, she picked up the phone coldly. If you put Xiao Yu's information on the internet, I won't let you go, Su Jiran said fiercely. Ha! Baya chuckled, and her tears fell silently. She asked arrogantly, how can you not let me go? Do you think that you can still stay in the hospital with just a word from me? I'll make sure that you can't even be a doctor anymore, Su Jiran threatened. Or, he was not threatening, but stating a reality in the future. She didn't want to continue living this hellish life. She could choose to end it, couldn't she? Su Jiran, let's get a divorce. I'll leave without any conditions. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow, Baya said coldly, and her eyes were resolute. She suddenly felt a lot more relaxed when she said those words. What did you say? Su Jiran frowned, and he was very agitated. She actually asked him for a divorce. She knew that he was the mastermind of the kidnapping, and she still forced him to marry her without hesitation. Baya actually wanted to divorce him with nothing. You're not thinking clearly, Su Jiran said angrily. I've never been so clear-headed. Also, when you think that I'm dirty, I don't think that you're very clean. On the contrary, in my eyes, you're trash, Baya retorted bluntly. I'm trash, and you still want to marry me. Su Jiran roared. His eyes were bloodshot, and he clenched his fists tightly. The veins on the back of his hands were popping. I was kidnapped by your lover. I just escaped, and I saw you and your lover doing that in the car. Only then did I know that it was all planned by you, Baya said. But I didn't plan for you to sleep with the kidnapped man, Su Jiran said angrily. If you didn't kidnap me and take me to the wilderness, would this have happened? You didn't plan it, but it doesn't mean that your lover didn't. I'm thinking, why did you do this to me? Baya's eyes were filled with hatred. Because you're *tch, Su Jiran scolded irrationally. That's why I married you. You brought me endless pain, and I also want you to continue looking at my disgusting face. I don't want you to be comfortable, and I don't want you to be happy, Baya blurted out. Then why didn't you persist? Su Jiran asked coldly. Because I chose to let myself go. So, you can do whatever you want in the future. Even if you get sick, it has nothing to do with me. Your matters have nothing to do with me, Baya said coldly and hung up the phone. Su Jiran clenched his phone tightly, and his strength increased. It was as if he was going to crush the phone. Xiaoya asked worriedly, what did Baya say? Su Jiran swept a sharp glance at Xiaoyu. Blood vessels were spreading in his eyes, and what he shot out were ice needles that could cut a person into pieces. Xiaoya didn't know what Baya said on the other end of the line. Su Jiran's expression made her tremble in fear. Chapter 16. No, I just want to. Xiaoya wanted to say something but stopped. She didn't know what to say to calm the man's anger. What did you say? Su Jiran shouted. Xiaoya was scared and said frankly, I didn't say anything. I just sent her the recording we made before. Su Jiran slapped Xiaoya's face with a backhand and stared at her with murderous intent. Who gave you the right to do this? Xiaoya fell to the ground, knelt in front of Su Jiran, and hugged his leg. I just want her to be sensible and leave you. I love you. I love you crazily. Su Jiran grabbed her neck as if he could kill her with a little more strength. He said angrily, who do you think you are? She's just a woman I play with casually. What right do you have to ask her to leave me? Xiaoya's face was pale. Her breath was sucked out little by little, and she said intermittently, Brother. Brother Ran, spare me. Su Jiran didn't want to let go. The murderous intent was getting stronger and stronger. His cell phone rang. Su Jiran's eyes flashed and he let go of his hand. Xiaoya lay on the ground weakly, coughing and inhaling. Su Jiran answered the phone. Boss Su, the license plate of the car you mentioned has been found. It's the car of Gu Lingqing, the senior leader of the special forces of the military region. Su Jiran's man reported. The murderous intent in Su Jiran's eyes didn't disappear, and he twitched the corner of his mouth. It's him. Where's Madam? Did she go back to the apartment? She followed Gu Lingqing to the ship. It is said that she will go ashore tomorrow morning. The man reported truthfully. Su Jiran's pupils shrank sharply, and his face was livid. He clenched his teeth and spat out, play with them tomorrow. No one can provoke my woman, Su Jiran. Yes. After Su Jiran hung up the phone, he coldly looked at Xiaoya on the ground and ordered, leave this place within 3 days. Don't let me see you again. No, Brother Ran, I love you. I can't leave you. Xiaoyu pleaded. Bitch. Su Jiran kicked Yinue away. There was no emotion in his cold eyes. He made a call. Take back all the properties, companies, cars, and luxury goods under Yinue's name. Cancel all her bank business related to me and ban her. Xiaoya's complexion was ashen. She did not have any strength left as she collapsed on the ground. The sky began to turn white. The first ray of sunlight passed through the window and fell on her body. Baiye opened his eyes. This was the first time he had slept so peacefully. She got up, brushed her teeth, and came out of the bathroom. There was a knock on the door. Baiye opened the door. Gu Lingqing stood upright at the door with 3 bags in his hands. The clothes you wore yesterday shouldn't be dry. Wear this, Gu Lingqing said in a low voice. He put the bags on the ground. Gu Lingqing was a man of few words. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Baiye looked at the bags on the ground and smiled slightly. There was a warm feeling in her heart. She picked up the paper bag on the ground and took out the clothes inside. It was a handmade silk-embroidered dress. The dress had a lotus collar and orchid edges. It was delicate and elegant. One look and she could tell that it was expensive. She had not paid him for the cosmetics yet. There were white leather shoes inside. The texture was soft and comfortable to wear. She put it on and went out. She saw Gu Lingqing on the deck. The sea breeze blew over the surface of the sea, and the waves were sparkling. Gu Lingqing was even more dazzling. His handsome side profile was like a sculptor's perfect work of art. He looked deep into the distance. Although he had a cold temperament, she could clearly feel a hint of warmth in him that was rarely seen by others. Gu Lingqing turned around and looked at her. His deep eyes flickered. This dress suits you very well. She walked over and leaned against the railing. She said gently, I seem to owe you more and more. If you don't owe me anymore, you can just throw these into the rubbish bin when you go back. Gu Lingqing said coldly. Baiye smiled. He was really overbearing. Su Jiran's image flashed in her mind. She looked up at Gu Lingqing and asked seriously, Chief, I want to ask you a question. Ha! He looked at her too. At this moment, they were chatting as if they had known each other for a long time. Why do you hate Miss Yu so much? From what I see, she does love you very much. Baiye did not understand. It was not that she was gossipy, but she thought of herself. He stared at her as if he could see through her heart. He replied seriously, First, I don't like her. Second, I don't like her pestering me. Third, she hurt my friend. If there is still some friendship left in the past, then I will not force her to disappear. Baiye understood. Su Jiran didn't like her. He didn't like her pestering him. He thought that she had hurt Xiaoya. She was relieved. Thank you, Chief, Baiye said softly. You are not my subordinate, nor are you a soldier. You don't have to call me Chief, Gu Lingqing said coldly. Ha! She was a little embarrassed. I'm sorry. My name is Gu Lingqing. He looked at the coast. You can call me that. Baiye had a strange feeling in her heart. It was too impolite for her to call his name. Count the money for the cosmetics and the clothes and shoes together. I can't take your things for nothing. Baiye changed the topic. There was a hint of anger in his eyes. He squinted at her calm face. If you really want to distance yourself from me, accompany me to buy clothes in the afternoon. You pay. Baiye paused and looked down. She didn't want to owe him money. She should buy him something expensive. At least something similar to the money she owed him. I have to work today. Let's go after work. Is that okay? Baiye asked. Gu Lingqing's face looked even worse. She really wanted to distance herself from him. Lieutenant Colonel Shang is coming. Get in the car. Gu Lingqing didn't wait for her to see his face clearly. He strode towards the dock. Lieutenant Colonel Shang stood beside the Land Rover respectfully and opened the back door. After Gu Lingqing got in the car, he ordered coldly, "Send her home first." "Yes." Lieutenant Colonel Shang received the order. "Miss Bai, where do you live?" "Blue Sky Apartment." "Just get off at the gate." "I can walk in by myself." Bai Ye replied. She turned to look at Gu Lingqing. Gu Lingqing closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. He was noble, elegant, and unapproachable. Bai Ye didn't say anything to disturb his rest. She looked out of the window. A motorcycle was approaching aggressively. Gu Lingqing suddenly opened his eyes and looked out of the window. The motorcycle owner raised his gun. Before Bai Ye could react, he quickly pressed on her body. He covered her head with his hand and covered her with his chest. Bang! There was a loud sound. Chapter 17. The bullet grazed Gu Lingqing's arm and hit the car door. Lieutenant Colonel Shang stopped the car in a hurry and the motorcycle sped away. "Chief, are you okay?" Lieutenant Colonel Shang took out the pistol placed in the car and aimed at the man who was driving the motorcycle. "Don't shoot. It's downtown and you might accidentally hurt people," Gu Lingqing reminded him. He sharply glanced at the motorcycle in the distance and then ordered, "Block the road in Qingshan and get the surveillance video of this road. Don't alert the enemy." "Yes, Chief." Bai Ye saw the blood on his hand and glanced at Gu Lingqing's arm. His arm was full of scratches caused by glass shards. If it wasn't for him, it would have been her head and face that was scratched. A wave of palpitation flowed through his heart. "Your hand is injured. The hospital is nearby. Do you want to go and bandage it first?" Bai Ye said with concern. Gu Lingqing looked at Bai Ye and said apologetically, "I can't send you back. I can't send you back. I have to go back to the military. I'll contact you again." "It's okay. I can go back by myself." Bai Ye got off the car. He was one step faster and stopped the taxi. He lowered his head and ordered the driver, "Take her back to Blue Sky Apartment." Bai Ye walked towards the taxi. She got on the car and he closed the door for her. Bai Ye looked at his arm again. It was still bleeding. His eyes were filled with sympathy and pity. This man seemed to care too little about me. Last time, he used his body to block bullets for me. This time, it was the same. Other people's lives were important in his eyes, but what about his own? There was a strange feeling spreading in her heart bit by bit. After a while, she returned to the apartment and opened the door. Su Jiran was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed. He was half lying on the sofa lazily. He casually put one hand on the sofa and played with the fruit knife with the other hand. The corner of his mouth curled up. He was obviously smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'll take the marriage certificate and ID card. I may also need the household register. Wait for me." Bai Ye walked towards the bedroom. "Did that man make you feel good?" Su Jiran mocked. Bai Ye glanced at him. She was disgusted by his filthy behavior. She pursed her lips and didn't deny it. "Yeah, it felt good." Su Jiran got up and gave her a hard slap on the face. "You're so cheap." He was very heavy-handed. She suddenly felt dizzy and saw stars. A trace of blood could be seen at the corner of her mouth. Bai Ye wiped the corner of his mouth coldly. The most shameless thing she had ever done was to fall in love with him. If this is what it means to be cheap, then what about you, who has cheated on me so many times? Bai Ye mocked. After saying it out loud, he felt that there was no point in haggling over it anymore. Forget it. After today, we'll go our separate ways. There's nothing to talk about. This apartment is yours. I'll move out in the afternoon. Baya walked forward. Soo-jiran's eyes were bloodshot. He grabbed her arm and held her face between his thumb and index finger. He pinched her face so hard that it hurt. You've learned to make me a cuckold. Soo-jiran said angrily. The veins on his forehead were popping. Baya glared at him. She didn't even want to talk to him. She pushed his hand away. From now on, we'll have nothing to do with each other. His heart tightened. She still wanted to love someone else. He held her chin again. His angry breath blew on her face. It was hot, as if he wanted to roast her. But he didn't know why he was so angry when he heard that she wanted a divorce and no longer cared about him. Baya, I'll let you know the consequences of betraying me today. His devilish eyes were full of danger and sarcasm. Haven't you always wanted me to bed you? Today, I'll satisfy you. I'll definitely satisfy you. Baya recalled the contents of the phone call yesterday. She felt a nauseous churn in her stomach. She couldn't speak for a moment. Seeing that she didn't reject him, Soo-jiran sneered. Seems like that man didn't satisfy you. You want it, right? Baya came back to her senses. Get lost. There was a sharp glint in his eyes as he kissed her lips. To be exact, it wasn't a kiss. It was a bite. He bit her lips and sucked the blood out of her. Baya struggled with all her might. She beat him and pushed his head. He was too strong. She couldn't break free at all. Soo-jiran tasted the sweetness of her blood. He smelled her fragrance. Her lips are so damn soft. He couldn't control himself. The thought of her spending the whole night with Gu Lingqing flashed in his mind. His eyes were sharp. He let go of her and asked dangerously, "Where else have you been touched by other men?" Baya was scared. She didn't want to be touched by him. She saw the fruit knife on the coffee table. She took advantage of his unguarded moment to grab the knife and press it against Soo-jiran's neck. Soo-jiran paused and looked at Baya. But there was no fear in his eyes. He sneered. Do it if you have the ability. Let me see how cold-blooded a woman like you can be. Baya's hands were trembling. Her eyes were sharp and on guard against him. Did you say that you don't want to touch me? What are you doing now? Don't slap yourself in the face. Baya was angry. Ha. Soo-jiran chuckled and said wickedly, I regret it now. I want to see what other men like about you. Why would they want to touch you? He approached her again. Baya was scared. She tried to stab his arm. Before she could touch it, her hand was quickly pressed down by him. His strength was so strong that her bones seemed to be broken. The knife fell to the ground. He curled the corner of his mouth and his devilish eyes were covered with anger. Aim for my heart. My arm. You won't let me die. I'm afraid that killing you will dirty my hands. Baya glared at him with hatred. Soo-jiran sneered. His cold hand caressed her fair cheek. There was no pity in his eyes. How did he touch you yesterday? You're just so cheap. Do you think everyone is as disgusting as you? He didn't touch me at all. Baya pried his fingers. Soo-jiran didn't believe her at all. Are you kidding me? A man and a woman spent the night together. They changed their clothes and took a shower. Is there something wrong with him? Or are you insulting my intelligence? Believe it or not, it's up to you. Baya's eyes flashed, and she kicked at his abdomen mercilessly. Soo-jiran was shocked. He didn't expect her to kick his abdomen. He instinctively jumped back and dodged Baya's kick. Baya threw the fruit platter on the table at Soo-jiran. Soo-jiran dodged it. Baya rushed out of the house without looking back. F***ck, Su Jiran was furious. He kicked the coffee table. One of the legs of the coffee table broke. The housekeeper stood at the kitchen door and looked at Su Jiran in fear. Su Jiran was furious. He glanced at the housekeeper. Get lost. You're fired. Chapter 18. In the afternoon, Baya came out of the surgery and returned to her office. Gu Lingqing leaned against the wall outside her office. He was quiet. Baya was slightly surprised to see him. With his status, the hospital director would have gone to the door to welcome him. Why would he wait at her door in a low-key manner? Baya walked towards him and saw that the bandages on his arm were very ugly. Some of them were stacked together. The doctors in the military don't seem to be very good. He glanced at her. Actually, the nurses in the military were distracted when they saw him. He was annoyed by their flirtatious gazes, so he simply bandaged it himself. He locked his gaze on her lips and his dark eyes became deep. The wound on her lips was obviously caused by biting. He rubbed his fingertips on her lips as if he was helping her wipe something clean. The place where he rubbed was a little numb. Baya was shocked. She took a step back and got rid of his hand. Gu Lingqing's eyes darkened. What happened here? I accidentally rubbed it. Baya said guiltily. She walked past him and into the office. She lowered her head and took out the bandages and iodine from the drawer. She changed the topic. I'll help you bandage it again. He sat opposite her desk and rested his arm on the desk. Baya untied it gently and carefully bandaged it for him. She reminded him. Don't touch water. If the wound gets infected, you'll have a fever. It'll be fine when it scars. He didn't listen to what she said at all. He frowned and looked at the wound on her lips. If he looked closely, he could see that one side of her face was slightly swollen. You were beaten. Gu Lingqing guessed. Baya paused and there was sadness in her eyes. She said in a low voice, it won't happen again. This kind of life is coming to an end. What do you mean? Gu Lingqing didn't understand. Baya shook her head and didn't say anything else. Gu Lingqing turned his face away and sulked at himself. He saw that Baya was done bandaging and stood up. He glanced at the door. Let's go. Lieutenant Colonel Shang is still outside. He said it as a statement. She couldn't reject him at all. Baya could only follow. They arrived at the parking lot. His car was replaced by a private Rolls-Royce. Lieutenant Colonel Shang opened the door for them and said to Baya, Dr. Gu is very busy. Our chief has been waiting for you for 2 hours. Ah. She was a little embarrassed and explained, I'm in surgery. I'm sorry. I didn't call you in advance. It has nothing to do with you, Gu Lingqing said coldly and then sat on the back seat. Baya sat beside him. He was tall and had long legs. From time to time, it would touch her knee. Baya was a little uneasy and asked Gu Lingqing, where are we going now? Shuiwei International. We can buy clothes after dinner. Gu Lingqing said. She glanced at her and asked casually, what do you want to eat? Chinese or Western? I know a good one there. My treat, Baya said with a smile. Gu Lingqing said nothing. After a while, they arrived at a French restaurant on the 5th floor of Water Moon International. Lieutenant Colonel Shang used something as an excuse and disappeared. The waiter came over and gave Gu Lingqing and Baya a menu each. He then politely poured them lemon tea. I want a French set meal. Freshly squeezed watermelon juice for the drink. Baya gave her menu to the waiter. Same, Gu Lingqing said calmly and gave the menu to the waiter. Did you catch the criminal who shot you when you went back? Bai Ye asked. She still had lingering fear when she thought of that scene. It was obviously premeditated. The motorcycle never came out after entering the cave. When we arrived, the motorcycle was still there but the person was already gone, Gu Lingqing explained. His voice was deep, like the sound of a cello. It was quite nice to listen to at this time. Is your job dangerous? I can see that when the others come out, there will be a lot of people protecting them. You seem to be alone a lot, Bai Ye asked confusedly. He smiled. It was a nice smile and his eyes were like the rippling surface of a lake. You care about me. We've been through life and death together twice. It's not easy to not care about you, Bai Ye said naturally and took a sip of the lemon tea. Gu Lingqing's eyes softened a little. He explained, the identity and appearance of a special force soldier are all confidential. Except for certain people, we basically don't expose it. Also, I don't like to be followed by a lot of people. It's not free. I didn't know that you're quite. Bai Ye couldn't think of a suitable adjective. She hesitated for a while. But, it doesn't match your strict image. Do you want to say that I'm unruly or rebellious? Bai Ye felt that she said the wrong thing. People who advocate freedom are all worthy of yearning. She clinked her glass with his tea instead of wine. Gu Lingqing also took a sip of tea. Now that he was free, he wasn't as harsh and cold as usual. Instead, he was warm and reassuring. The waiter served the signature set meal here. Foie gras, steak, appetizer red wine, and vegetable salad. The special forces of the military are now recruiting doctors. Are you interested in trying? He elegantly picked up the wine glass, took a sip, and put it down gently. There are pregnant women in your special forces. My profession doesn't seem suitable. She smiled faintly and took a sip of the red wine. She licked her lips and savored it carefully. Gu Lingqing lowered his head and elegantly cut the steak on the plate. It's because there are no gynecologists that such a dangerous mission falls on the shoulders of ordinary people. If I really go, I'll only have one mission every 10 years. Won't I be bored to death? 10 years later, I might not even remember how to perform the surgery, Bai Ye said jokingly. Doctors in the gynecology and obstetrics department know how to bandage wounds and do emergency treatment, such as removing bullets and applying medicine. This is not a leisurely job. They may be busier than ordinary doctors. Gu Lingqing glanced at her. He actually wanted her to go. Since you're so busy, I'd better not go. Actually, I prefer to be more relaxed, Bai Ye said with a smile. Gu Lingqing, he was a little disappointed that she wouldn't go. What a coincidence. Su Xiaoling's voice was heard. She stood in front of their table and glanced at Bai Ye in disgust. Her eyes landed on Gu Lingqing's face. Gu Lingqing was expressionless. He lowered his head and ate his steak, ignoring the provocative woman. Su Xiaoling gritted her teeth and said proudly, Gu Lingqing, let me tell you a piece of good news. I'm now a doctor specially recruited by the Special Forces. Let's work together in the future. Gu Lingqing frowned and looked at Su Xiaoling calmly. Whether you can come or not depends on my approval. If I don't approve it, you probably won't be able to come. Su Xiaoling curled her lips. I knew you would say that. Uncle Gu has already approved it. So. Gu Lingqing said coldly, you're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.